Senator Bob Menendez, he's a Democrat. He has just been indicted on bribery charges for accepting gold bars. This is going to be an interesting story because this dude's been, I think he's been criminally charged before. He's been, let's just say he's been on the wrong side of the law in the past. And here we go again. I don't think anyone's surprised to hear this news, but it's going to have a tremendous impact on the Senate. I'm wondering what this will mean for New Jersey and for the balance of power in the Senate. And then, of course, we have the Democrat mayor of Dallas switches to the Republican Party. This is going to be really interesting. What we see moving forward in 2024, of course, we've been seeing a lot of interesting things. There's not necessarily any evidence of direct correlation, but when you see someone in a Democrat city say outright, we need Republicans, I'm switching, that's it. I think 2024 is going to get really interesting in terms of people are insane. There's going to be prosecutions, there's going to be conflict, but we're going to see weird stories in the press. And, well, may you live in interesting times. Before we get started with the news, my friends, head over to Timcast.com, click Timcast IRL X Miami, and pick up your tickets to come see us in Miami, October 6th, with Patrick Bet-David, James O'Keefe, Matt Gaetz, Luke Rudkowski, of course, me and Ian Crossland will be there, plus a whole bunch of other guests will be there as well. We've got Alex Stein. He'll be doing a set just before the show, and several other prominent individuals that you're fans of that have appeared on Timcast IRL are going to be hanging out. And we might have a list of scheduled attendees next week, but pick up your tickets now. We hope to see you there. Don't forget to also click join us, become a member so that you can hang out in the Discord server with all the other like-minded individuals. The Timcast Discord members are running pre-shows, after shows. They're making music together. They're working on projects together. It really is a great community of people doing awesome work. So sign up. You'll also get access to a massive library of uncensored members only shows dating back to, I think, two or so years now. We do those Monday through Thursday. You don't miss them. And more importantly, as a member, you're supporting our work. Your membership, when you sign up, it helps support our infrastructure and it allows us to do crazy things like build an anti-Times Square, which is currently underway. We are working with Chef Andrew Gruel on the plans. The idea is to create this big parallel economy physical space. We've got a bunch of really awesome stuff happening. And of course, shout out to Public Square because they've sponsored our Miami event. And we hope to do a lot of really awesome stuff with them in building the parallel economy. And additionally, as members, the payment processor we use for Timcast.com, it is Parallel Economy. It is a Rumble affiliate. It's Dan Bongino. These guys are doing amazing things in building infrastructure so that we can't get banned or canceled. Not impervious, but more resilient. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and a whole lot more is Vince Dow.
Good to see everyone. Yeah, my name is Vince Dow. I'm a Gen Z conservative content creator, and you may recognize me from that one Vice panel where the other Asians were going crazy, and I just was very calm, and everyone has seen that. Not everyone, but a lot of people in the sector have seen that. So if you've seen that, that's of course me, and great to be here and good to be with you, Tim, of course.
Right on. Thanks for hanging out. We got Phil Labonte.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte, lead singer of All That Remains, a failed musician guy, anti-communist and counter-revolutionary.
A communist called you a failed musician? Is Hassan a communist? He's a socialist.
It's the same garbage. Socialism. The end goal of socialism is communism, said Lenin.
This is like, dude. Yeah, so Hassan was doing a podcast and he said Phil was a failed musician. And it's like, bro, if you're that desperate and that's the only move you have to make against someone because you don't have an argument to say that a platinum recording artist who just opened for Metallica has failed. I'm like, damn, what's success?
Apparently, it's quitting the leftovers is success. That's what I hear. So
he quit?
That's what I hear. I don't know for sure, but I hear that he was leaving the leftovers. But
the leftovers.
I mean, look. Ethan Klein gave him the business, and that was the thing that I was poking at him about. And then the very next,
How do you get destroyed by Ethan Klein?
I mean, it was. Well, he asked you questions about communist China, and you're afraid of your chat. That's wow. He's terrified of his chat, and he doesn't want to say anything too anti-China. So and then the whole next episode, I watched it just recently. Ethan and Hassan are Ethan's picking Hassan apart, and Hassan's socialism is not strong. Yeah.
Wow.
It's not strong.
Well, Ian's here.
Hey everybody, what's up? Ian Crossland. I'd love to get Hassan in the house. We've been meaning to have him on anyway, so maybe now's a good time. Get this all hashed out face to face.
See if he'll actually get on a plane.
Play some music together. Good to see you, Vince.
Well, he of course is always welcome. I just really don't see that as being a reality.
That'd be great.
What's up, Kellen? It would be cool to get him here. I mean, he was the bro Bible guy. Like, I feel like somewhere deep down, you can have a real conversation, but What's up,
No,
guys?
look,
I'm
if someone's built their career off making money and their whole plan is like, what kind of content can I do to make money?
Yeah.
There's apparently some scandal involving Dylan Mulvaney related to this. Like a video came out, but we've talked about it before. Where if you look at Dylan's early content, it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
You know, these people aren't going to betray an ideology when the whole purpose of their ideology is to make money.
Yeah.
You know. But anyway,
And I hate the term grifter, but I've seen Hassan just sit there and he'll react to stuff and basically just eats food the whole time, says a couple comments, and it sells because it's reaction content. I don't know. Yeah,
He's a
so
big boy. It takes a lot of
it's a
nuggies
hangout.
to fuel that.
no, I mean
Right.
the real secret is for a lot of these online communities, it's a place to hang out.
exactly,
You know?
exactly. Yeah.
But let's jump into the news, ladies and gentlemen. Bob Menendez has been charged with accepting gold bar bribes. Hey man, I gotta say, if you're gonna take bribes, gold bars is the way to do it.
Smart.
So, New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez has been indicted for bribery, according to a statement from the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Menendez is currently the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. The Democrat and his wife, Nadine, have been under federal investigation since 2022. The couple is allegedly believed to have taken $400,000 worth of gold bars from New Jersey developer and former bank chairman Fred Diabas. How do you pronounce it? Diabs? And his associates, while Hannah and Jose Uribe. In exchange, Menendez reportedly agreed to use his official influence to sway the Justice Department, which had accused Diabas, I don't know how to pronounce that.
Diabase? I don't know.
Diabes? Of bank crimes. Newly unsealed documents filed in New York accuse Menendez and his wife of accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes in exchange for using Menendez's power and influence as a senator to seek, protect, and enrich Hannah, how do you pronounce that? Uribe?
Yeah, something like that.
Uribe?
Uribe. It looks like
And Diabas?
Diabas says there's a little typo there. It says DAI instead of DIA.
To the benefit of the Arab Republic of Egypt. Wow. Well, the first thing I'm going to say is the federal government, especially the Southern District of New York, gets zero benefit of the doubt from me. And I got to say, I am biased against, individuals like Menendez and many Democrats. But I will tell you this, I am more biased against the Southern District of New York for the things they've done. Aren't they the ones that have been going after, they went after Project Veritas? Maybe I'm wrong about that. But I know that they're going after Trump. Not a fan of these guys. And so I will actually say, I'll give Menendez the benefit of the doubt. Let's hear what they have to say. First and foremost, no matter who someone is, innocent until proven guilty. But I am not going to jump on throwing Menendez under the bus simply because he's a Democrat. I do not trust SDNY. I do not trust federal prosecutors. I think the moment the feds and New York goes after Trump for political reasons, anything they do is tainted, no matter what. So maybe they want to go after Menendez. Fine. Maybe it benefits Republicans in the long run. Sure, whatever. Don't care. These people are evil and I don't trust them.
Do you guys have a gold sponsor? Because if you do, this would be a great time.
Oh,
hey, the politicians are
actually.
trying to
On the podcast.
take the gold. Okay, so what do you think you should be doing? No, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There probably has to be a reason they're going after him, I'd have to imagine. I mean, you've seen the same thing. You said Southern District of New York, right? You kind of saw how the political system in New York went after Andrew Cuomo, one of their own, because, clearly something there fell out of favor. So I really wonder what the backstory is here, because I couldn't imagine they're just going to go after him just because, he's a corrupt politician, right? So there's probably something more to the story, I would have to imagine.
All Menendez has to do right now is put out have a press conference and say that 1 week ago, he began drafting a resolution for the Senate to end the persecution and prosecution of Donald Trump because it was disruptive to our democracy. And then all of a sudden he's being indicted and just let her rip.
Yeah, interesting.
Because look, the Democrats are in the seat of power.
Yeah.
What could he say right now in favor of Democrats that would get Democrats? Nothing. If he came out and said, I hate Donald Trump, please, they'd be like, too bad, we don't care.
Yeah.
But if he came out and was like, I was arguing to end the prosecution of Trump because this is not the way the Democratic Party should be operating, that would actually earn him some benefit. He would get political tribalists being like, we'll let you slide on this one. Keep talking.
Oof. I don't really have a take other than, if you can get gold bars, get them.
I'm very glad you started off the segment talking about the presumption of innocence. That's a real important part of the next 20 or 30 years of American livelihood.
Yeah, but the problem is we be good people. So I have no problem saying, like, I don't know what this guy was involved in, but you better prove it before I'm willing to throw someone in jail or whatever.
Every day, beyond a reasonable
But the problem
doubt.
is the Democrats don't extend that in the other direction.
No.
So at this point, is it like, well, you know what? You stick that label on your name and you get no favors from me.
No, that's what I think that's what the deep power wants is for us to forego rule of law and just start going at each other. They're frothing, waiting for the U.S. to tear itself apart.
But they're using the law like to go. If you're not, I don't see how you get to foregoing the rule of law. Like if you are if he's being prosecuted by New York, they're using the law against him. Now, granted, I mean, it looks like it doesn't look good. It looks like he actually did this stuff. But that being said, you should be innocent until proven guilty, or you should be treated that way. But it's not like they're after. Like it's not like there's an attempt to get around the law or circumvent the law, except for on his case. I don't see that it's a right-left thing is what I'm getting to.
Here's the thing is that I don't even want to use the term Democrats. I think it's more so there's a lot of people in the UNIPARTY who have gotten away with genuine, legitimate crimes that, no one ever indicted, no one ever tried to even investigate. So I do think to some degree, considering what they're doing to Trump and, a lot of people on our side for very frivolous reasons very often, I do think in the future, if we ever want to kind of balance out the playing field, I do think you're going to have to, at some point, try to hold the other side, or the Uniparty, I should say, really more so accountable for the things that they're just straight up getting away with that are real crimes. So I'm not saying to obviously fabricate crimes or try to, just go after people to go after them, but I think you've seen them turn a blind eye to a lot of establishment politicians over the years, and I think to balance out the situation now, I think, justice is necessary.
I just don't know if I'll trust any of them no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just none of it. None of it.
Right.
Look, and it's not just.
It's probably not going to happen, but it's just in theory.
They ignore Epstein. Right. All of them do. And the problem I have is that for a lot of these powerful, corrupt individuals that we know about, any prosecutor could have gone after them.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're right.
There is justification for when it comes to these politicians and high-profile individuals. They do work in the jurisdictions all across the country.
Yeah.
There are grounds for it. That's why New York is going after Trump. They'll find a way, but Republicans don't do anything. I was
thinking last night, like if you tear open an evil system and you rip back the curtain and show everyone how evil it is, you're providing a threat for the system's stability. Even if it's evil, if you expose it, it can disrupt and then the system could fall apart. So what'll happen is people will try and just show you a little bit of it at a time, but that's like poking a needle into a balloon and trying to stop it from popping, trying to hold it tight. And it's like once evil gets exposed a little, the rest of it just comes pouring out. And like trying to suppress people's awareness of it is almost doing more damage to the system than just letting it,
it's building up.
Yeah, that's what it feels like.
There is a pustule full of pus on the United States that they just keep slapping Band-Aids over, and it just keeps getting bigger and worse.
Yeah.
And when this thing pops, it's going to suck. But man, you can't just keep thinking like, this is what they do in terms of the economy. As we were talking about with debt and war, and one of the theories, there is a theory, I could call it a conspiracy, I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory, hypothesis, that the purpose of the stimulus during COVID was not really COVID. It was, hey, here's our chance to flood the economy with printed money so that we can pay down the debt and kick the can down the road for a couple more years, because a monetary system which produces more debt than currency eventually collapses.
Right.
I mean, that's something that Austrians and libertarians and even fiscal conservatives have been talking about. I mean, we are in a new paradigm now, considering the fact that the government and the Federal Reserve is working under a modern monetary theory. Like, so it's MMT all the way. The idea that they're taxing to pay for things, that's something that people should just put out of their heads. The point of taxes is to control inflation. That's it. Just to take money from people. They're going to print up the money that they whatever they need to do, whatever program they want, whatever they need, they just print it. The fact that the federal government collects taxes means that the dollar has a value, because you have to get dollars to pay those taxes. They use taxes and interest rates to control inflation. There is nothing backing it. The only value that comes from your dollar is from the demand for taxes. So we have to get away, or people should try to get away from the idea that we are using taxes to pay for projects. And the argument against MMT is it gives the government unlimited authority to print money and do whatever they want with finances outside of the.
Let me read some of this real quick from NBC just to give some context. Sure. Apparently, his wife is also being charged, and they say that federal agents said they discovered many of these items were when they executed search warrants in the couple's home. They found more than $480,000 in cash, much of it stuffed into envelopes and hidden in clothing, closets, and a safe, including jackets bearing the senator's name that were hanging in his closet, as well as more than $70,000 in Nadine's safe deposit box, the indictment alleges. I mean, this is pretty wild.
Whose money was he holding?
They got photos
come on.
Yeah.
of like a sweater. Let me pull this up because I was just reading it on my phone. Let me pull it up.
Is there, I wanted to ask you, Phil, do you know of any historical examples of a nation or an empire being in the level of debt that we are right now? So this is kind of like uncharted territory.
No, and also MMT is still a fairly new theory.
Yeah.
So did you have something to say?
Yeah. I wanted to comment really quickly on Tim's quote unquote conspiracy theory. It's funny, we talk about the Great Reset, living in pods, and very often the natural reaction is people would never accept that. But that is the thing, is that when everything becomes unaffordable, when you can't afford a home, where are you going to live? You can't afford food. You know, what's the next reaction to that? So if it all lined up and that was the purpose of COVID, to basically destroy the current order and traditional American way of life, so that way it gets worse and worse, and now eventually people 10 years from now will basically just accept a quasi Great Reset, I think it's interesting to say the least, right?
We got this picture pulled up, and it's a decent amount of money. I mean, it's probably a couple grand. Serious question though, for what reason? It's an honest question. This is not rhetorical. Honest question. For what purpose would someone have $5,000 to $10,000 in $100 bills in an envelope, hidden in a just like stuffed in the pocket in a closet in a sweater?
It's not his. That's my initial thought is, whose money is this? And why is he holding on to it? I think he's a scapegoat. I think they're throwing him under the rug, saying, look, the DOJ plays fair. Look at us.
I mean, it could be his money, because if he is taking bribes, that's what makes sense. He doesn't want a paper trail. So
Possibly.
He does hard paper.
But we live in a world of crypto. Like, I think it's very...
Crypto's not safe.
Yeah, crypto's, they got AI that can track all that
this
stuff.
This guy's been hard
Monero,
on crypto,
maybe,
actually.
Zcash.
This guy was notoriously pushing hard against one of the crypto companies, what was it, like a year ago. I read that earlier today, and I didn't dig into how bad it was, but it's like harmonious that this guy who's anti-crypto is taking bribes. So like, who's the real villain in this situation?
Yo, look at these gold bars. Wow.
They
Gold bars.
Swiss Bank.
What do you do with gold bars?
Put them in a safe.
It says Swiss Bank Corporation. I know, but like, look, man, I know gold is valuable, but how are you going to move this amount of money? Like, what's your plan? If you're a regular person and you are like, I would like to hedge, have a hedge or a hard asset or whatever, it's like, okay, I totally get it. Totally get buying gold. I have a little bit. I have more silver than gold, but no, it makes sense. But if you're taking bribes, what are you going to do with it?
There was a bunch in lots of envelopes, different envelopes. That makes me think that they're going to traffic them. They're going to start trafficking cash off site. They may have already started trafficking cash off site if they're in little envelopes.
Well, I mean,
you know what's kind of funny about this though is this is a very old school New York, New Jersey political scandal. He has a bunch of cash money, gold bars, mafia, very aesthetic going there. It kind of amuses me, to tell you the truth. It's an old school political scandal.
It is very
right?
like Breaking Bad, Ozark,
right.
Right. Yeah, that's funny.
Oh yeah, so this is Menendez was going hard on Venezuela's talk of utilizing crypto.
Okay, now
I
just got to say right here. Nah, this doesn't move the needle for me. I mean, he's got a couple grand in 50s. He's got 20s right there, and it looks like it might be like,
so say 1,400,
1,400 maybe in 20s. If they're super rich, having like $1,000 in a pocket somewhere, a couple like, I'm okay. I can understand that for whatever. Mm-hmm. But that stack of hundreds, I'm like, for what purpose?
Well, it's in the envelopes, because if a drug dealer has like a big block of weed, that's one thing. But if they have a bunch of little baggies of it all split up, that's intent to sell. That's intent to move, basically.
Yeah. I mean, how rich is this guy? What's his net worth?
I don't know. I don't really buy that he was attempting to move the money. I think he was just sitting on it. Honestly, I have a feeling, if you got gold bars, like what does move mean to you?
Give it to his friends, send it overseas. I'm not sure. Put it in a pocket every week. All
right. Oh, hold on. We got opensecrets.org saying that his net worth as of 2018 was $541,000.
Whoa.
Ain't no way someone whose net worth is just $500,000 is dropping 5-10K in the coat pocket and ignoring it. If this dude was worth a couple mil, I'd be like, maybe he was out partying with the boys at a bar. He took out a bunch of cash. Maybe he was doing Vegas or whatever. I don't know. There's reasons, but not a dude who's worth this. And his assets are apparently his house. So he's worth $500,000, but 375 is his house. And then he makes $175,000 a year.
Man.
That is weird for him to be worth so little money, honestly, from
I can't believe this, right?
where like he's a New York.
But they got to file their disclosures though.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on here. I don't know what CA Club India. It says his net worth is 18 million.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Well, that
Says,
sounds
but I don't know which one's real. I know that he's got to you've got
Well, the Open Secrets was 2018, right? So
right. It was a while
could have
ago.
changed, yeah.
I mean, wow, being in government makes you a lot of money, apparently.
Yeah.
You know?
According to what is wealthypersons.com, 600K.
Bob Menendez Googled how much is 1 kilo of gold worth around the time his wife accepted alleged bribes.
I Google that probably once a week to check on the price.
And you guys know that
What if he
his
barely
daughter
knows
is an
about any of
MSNBC
this?
host.
And it's all his wife. Imagine
his-
imagine your wife getting
His daughter his daughter is a host on MSNBC, I'm pretty sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Daughter. Who do you guys know who gave the bribe? Alleged bribe? Does it say in the article?
It doesn't. I don't think so.
Bob Menendez is
So Alicia?
let's see, Alicia Menendez, anchor for MSNBC. Is
Shocking.
she still? I think she has hosted. I'm pretty sure she does stuff for them. But is it any surprise to like it's one big happy family tree? Everybody, this is what they do.
Yeah.
Granted, I'll say it again, like innocent until proven guilty. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't care for this. Bob Menendez Googling how much is a kilo of gold worth doesn't prove that he took a bribe.
Right.
Like for all we know, his wife bought gold, and they were like, "We're gonna get rid of this guy because he's not playing ball with us."
Yeah.
I don't trust Bob Menendez. I mean, he's been accused of a lot of things before, and so I'm not giving. I mean, first of all, for the most part, Democrats ain't getting the benefit of the doubt from me.
Right.
Well,
that's the thing is the system is so corrupt these days that it shouldn't be like this, but the minute I see them go after someone, yeah, exactly. The minute I see them go after someone, my first instinct isn't, okay, what did they do in the terms of the crime? It's why are they going after him, right? And I think that's kind of a natural reaction we have in a lot of American life these days,
Let's talk about this. I want to jump to this story from CNN. Dallas mayor switches parties to join GOP. All right. We just covered a story about a Democrat being accused of taking bribes, being corrupt. And I think for most of you who watch our show, you probably don't have a very favorable view of Democrats, nor the majority of the Republican Party. But the Democrats, I widely view as corrupt tribalists who are just career politicians who are trying to extract what they can from the system. And so here you have this guy. This is Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson responding to questions during a news conference. And there are two issues that are brought up because of this. Let me read a little bit. Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson announced Friday that he's switching parties and will serve as a Republican-affiliated mayor of the blue-leaning city. While the Dallas mayoral office is nonpartisan, Johnson previously served as a Democrat in the Texas legislature. He slammed his former party in an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal published Friday, blaming Democratic policies for exacerbated crime and homelessness. Quote, "The future of America's great urban centers depends on the willingness of the nation's mayors to champion law and order and practice fiscal conservatism. Our cities desperately need the genuine commitment to these principles, as opposed to the inconsistent poll-driven commitment of many Democrats that has long been a defining characteristic of the GOP." So, to clarify, the mayoral position is not a partisan position, so they usually don't say like the mayor's affiliation, but he is. He was a Democrat. He ran, in this style, this affiliation. Now he's saying he is going to be joining the GOP and will be Republican affiliated as mayor. The question I have is, first, if someone is in a Democrat city as a high level politician and they're going to switch to the GOP, either they're saying I'm retiring or they believe this is their path to maintaining their position and serving their constituents. Secondly, this is a black mayor in a Democrat city saying he's going to vote Republican, and we have more polling coming out from the Wall Street Journal, published in the Wall Street Journal and several other outlets, showing that Trump is polling very, very well among Black and Hispanic Americans. I'm wondering if this is if this is a component of this as well. If this is another individual who is polled and is outright saying no more Democrat, now a Republican.
I have a feeling that this is that the conditions at the border are a significant factor in why the Dallas mayor is switching sides. I can't imagine that the people of Texas, who are the most immediately affected by the border crisis, I can't see them saying, oh, it's fine. I can't see them saying, oh, it's no big deal. These people that live in Texas, like, they know, they have friends that are in the border region and stuff like that. I mean, granted, Texas is a big state, but still, like, these people are living with it every day. And you see videos all the time of caravans of people coming to the border. I just read a piece that said 300. There was a record that 300,000 people crossed the border or were detained or apprehended. Maybe is the best word. 300,000 people in 1 month. It's a record. I mean, the federal government is totally abdicated their responsibility of securing the border. The clown administration that we have put Kamala Harris in charge, and she hasn't done anything at all. They tried to deal with the dude, what's his name? Not Menendez. He was just on Capitol Hill talking to Congress, the head of Homeland Security. Either way, talking to him, there's talking about impeaching him. I think his name's Mayorkas.
Mayorkas,
yeah,
talking about impeaching him, and I don't know if anything's been done, but he has not done his job.
I think here's how I see it. There's that meme that I've brought up where it said, no one is trying to solve the problems. They're trying to get rich enough to where the problems don't affect them. And I'm like, that's a great motto for the modern Democratic Party.
Oh, yeah.
Help us get rich enough so that your problems are no longer our problems.
I wonder
or
what,
like the problems affecting you won't affect us is a better way to put it.
Mm-hmm. I wonder what this means for 2024, because obviously, if you know anything about Texas, and the reason why people are scared it's quote unquote going blue is two major population growths. It's in Austin and Dallas, right? And so if you're starting to see, like Tim said, is a possibility, which is he's actually maybe doing it for a political reason because he believes that the city of Dallas is going to become more right wing. I could see that translating to the rest of the country too. And I do think you're not going to see Democrats do as well in big cities as they did in 2020 because crime, homelessness, illegal immigration, all of it's adding up. So I wonder if there's something of a new urban appeal for the Republican Party, not to obviously win a majority of any of these cities, but at least to crack. You know, I'm sure the Democrats need a certain quota. That way they can outnumber the rural areas of a state like Texas or Georgia or even Michigan up in the Midwest, states like that. So I wonder what it means for 2024.
Yeah,
I really do.
The toxic compassion route has failed them. That's for sure. Like
Right.
bring as many people, unlimited, more people, and then all of a sudden you realize you're surrounded by homeless people that don't have food.
And you know, it's interesting. I'm from Los Angeles. You know, most of the family, friends, and stuff we grew up with are Democrat, but I'm noticing a very real trend in the people I knew growing up now trending, I'd say more independent, maybe moderate, maybe some even just have flat out become Republicans because they're just seeing it's too expensive, crime, you know, it's dangerous, homelessness everywhere. We just can't do this anymore. So, like I said, I'm not going to sell anyone here a delusion that, oh my gosh, Republicans are going to suddenly flip LA or California. But like I said, in swing states where the big city is our problem, I think a few points off of popularity for the Democrats could make the difference in one of these states, you know, in the presidential election.
I don't know if the immigration would be as heavy as it is without the internet. I don't know if the internet's played a part in allowing this to happen or if it's just allowed us to see what's happening. Because I think if this had happened without an internet, it would be happening without us knowing. And then all of a sudden one day we'd wake up and there would be 60 million people from foreign countries in our country. We wouldn't know. And they'd already be here controlling things. Now we can kind of see it in real time and adjust and maybe help prevent a catastrophe.
Yeah.
And I think people are willing to alter their political parties at the very least if they feel like that might make a difference.
Or maybe just sit home. You know, I think that's another issue. You talk about black turnout. I don't think Republicans are going to come close to winning a majority of the black vote, but I think a lot of these people who they normally bust to the polls and all of that in the inner cities might just say, I don't really care for this right now. You know what I mean? So I think you could see that too. Just a drop off in turnout of their base, even if it's not for us. Right.
I think that's actually what the polls show.
Yeah.
Or I should clarify. There are polls showing conservatives improving, but I think what you actually see when you look at the bigger picture is that
disaffectedness.
Support for Democrats is way down and support for Republicans up a little bit.
Right.
So there are some people who are like, I'm going to vote for the other guy, but most people are just saying, I am not voting Democrat.
There's
That's
no
it.
fuel. There's no fuel. Like, people didn't vote for Biden. They voted against Trump, right?
Right.
He's not the president right now. The president's Biden. So if you're feeling like life sucks right now, you got to look at President Biden and be like, he's not the guy. Anybody but him. So it may not be pro-Trump people, but they're just like you said, they might just stay home. They might not go out and vote. They're like, I can't vote for Trump, but I'm not voting for Biden again.
And think about all the people who, you probably know people like this, that say, if it's Trump versus Biden, I'm just going to leave that blank.
Yeah.
That helps Trump because
Yep.
Trump has a base and Biden
Doesn't.
less so. So, yeah, we'll see.
Trump not only has a base, but he has disaffected liberals.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who don't like Trump who will vote for him because Trump's personality issues and ego is nothing compared to Biden's failures with the economy, foreign policy failures, Eastern European war. These are all just apocalyptic failures for a president.
It's true. I mean, it is possible that he and Joe Biden and Hunter Biden got us into this war in the Middle East. Obviously, Russia.
You mean in Ukraine?
Yeah, I called it the Middle East. It's near the Middle East. It's all kind of one area. You know, is Turkey the Middle East? It's right next to
The Middle
it.
East of Europe.
Yeah.
And it's like if they went there and did if Hunter went there and then got bribed to go on an energy board for Burisma, and then Biden just was like, yeah, let's make some money off this, and then we got into a war. Like, that's the most true. Maybe not treason, but like selling out the country for sending the country into a war to make profit.
I think it would be treason. But I guess treason is specifically providing aid to a foreign adversary in a time of war.
I don't think that it's that personal. Like, I don't think when it comes to the war in Ukraine, I think that there's a whole apparatus that is interested in seeing Russia, hurt and seeing, actually just mostly Russia hurt. I think the support from Ukraine comes from the United States saying it is better for our foreign policy to have a weaker Russia. So when Russia decided they wanted to attack Ukraine or invade Ukraine, the U.S. said, we will help Ukraine. We will keep feeding them arms. And essentially it's the same model that we used, or the U.S. used, when the Russians were in Afghanistan, right? So you were feeding arms and ammunition and money to the Mujahideen, and they were fighting Russians. So that way the Russians would feel the same pain that the U.S. felt when the U.S. was in Vietnam fighting the VC, and that was being funded by the Russians and the Chinese. This is the kind of thing that happens, or has happened regularly since the end of World War II, because the Russians and the U.S. and Russia can't get into an actual confrontation themselves because it'll likely turn into a nuclear war. These kind of military actions are horrible. And you see, war crimes are being posted on X every day. I just saw one. There's a dude trying to surrender to a drone and they keep dropping bombs on him because, he's the bad guy. Well, that's a war crime. If he's trying to surrender and they keep dropping hand grenades on him to kill him, that's a war crime. And you see this stuff all the time. And it's normal in these kind of, it's normal in war. And it really does benefit the U.S. strategically to have Russia engaged in a war and have Russia weakened by having a bunch of people die.
It's gotten so dark, Phil. Like, I'll watch these videos and you see the people gathered around the tablet flying this drone and they're laughing because they're disconnected from the carnage and the chaos they're causing.
To be fair, though, if someone invades the United States, all bets are off.
Sure.
If someone invades your country, like, war crimes are for like people that are in, like, the U.S. when they were in World War II had to worry about war crimes when they were in France, right? Nobody was looking at the French saying you're committing war crimes because you're cutting Nazis' heads off or whatever. Well, the Nazis invaded, that's what happens. And that's what tends to happen in war generally. But it doesn't make it, any less of a war crime.
Well, here's the thing. It's interesting. You say, the U.S. thinks it strategically helps us to be funding this war or whatever. But I would kind of make a counter argument to that, which is in many ways, we pushed Russia and Ukraine into this spot. You kind of look at the history of the Minsk Accords and stuff over the years. The United States has stepped in repeatedly and told Ukraine, don't negotiate with Russia. They kept fanning the flames of this. But then what has happened now as a consequence of that is Russia now in the moment may look kind of stupid. Hey, look, their invasion isn't going so well. Haha. But what's long-term happening is Russia is being backed now into the corner of China, and they're all together now and meeting, and there's an alliance there. It's obviously forming. People say, oh, that's inevitable because they're both authoritarians. That's not true at all. When you look at the history of Russia and China, there's a reason why they've actually been a little bit more isolated, and Putin's been nervous about going into China's hands, even when they were both communist, right? The Soviet Union and Maoist China didn't even get along. And I think Putin's been in this position the past few decades where he's not sure, do I want to be Western or Eastern, tries to play both sides. We could have potentially, if not an ally, at least neutralized a very strong threat in having Russia not on the side of China and isolating China. But instead, what we've done through the whole course of basically, in many ways, I would argue, inciting this war and definitely feeling the flames of it, is now long term, we have a very powerful axis that we constructed ourselves and now are going to have to fight at once. And
maybe they want it.
Yeah.
Maybe they want it. They create a problem.
Yeah.
That gives them a crisis that they can use to exploit and implement new policies, plans.
Maybe, but I'm going to just err on the side of stupidity over malice on this one. I agree. I think that the argument that a weak Russia makes a strong U.S. is flawed, and I would argue with any defense contractor, anyone in the administration, anyone that wants to talk, because a weakened Russia becomes a desperate Russia, and a desperate Russia has nuclear weapons. That's not good for American sovereignty.
A strong Russia has nuclear weapons too, though.
Unless we are not concerned with their nuclear weapons for some reason.
Maybe, yeah, that's true. And also, a weakened Russia seeks allies elsewhere, and we don't want that. Doesn't make a strong America.
This is a little bit of a non sequitur, but I heard that Musk is contracting with the feds to build Star Shield or something, which is essentially the Iron Dome in the U.S.
Star Shield.
I don't know if this is true. It's a rumor that I heard, so I don't have any information on it.
That's from a year ago.
So
SpaceX unveils Star Shield, a military variation of Starlink satellites.
Secure satellite networks.
Well, a digital Iron Dome.
Okay, so then this is just an internet system?
Oh, it's a security system. Well, it's just security. Does that mean like laser defense?
Well, I imagine it could be if you've got multiple satellites that are.
It's just Starlink for the government.
Okay.
It's an isolated network so that it protects the government.
Yeah.
Star Shield.
Dude, defending your satellites. I mean, in the near future, you send things up there that can
Space
hit with
Force.
bullets.
I mean, the thing is, if you can get
drones.
a constellation of satellites similar to Starlink, then you can identify missiles that are being shot from anywhere in the world. You can pick them up as they're getting off the ground, and the idea is hopefully you can shoot them down before they get over the U.S. They have big lasers that they put in C5As that can shoot down missiles, and so if you can get them before they actually try to deliver their MIRVs or whatever, that might be part of it. So I mean, this is
low orbit satellite is the vehicle for these laser interception systems.
Mm-hmm. So,
but how would they collect and store enough power? Even with satellite, to store enough power for a directed energy weapon it's insane. It's going to be like years of charging up.
I imagine that
they can even hold it.
I imagine that they're just to identify and notify the U.S. that there is some kind of something going on. Yeah, when it takes off, and then like I said, you put a C5 in the air with a big chemical laser in it, and they because you can scramble if it's got 30 minutes, you can scramble a C5 in 10 if you have them on standby. Get them in the air and get them before they're.
I kind of feel like they'd probably just go the traditional Iron Dome or THAAD method, which is launching rockets at rockets.
Should be, or could be, yeah.
I mean, maybe lasers is the last resort, but the range on them is not going to be strong enough.
The range on the lasers?
Yeah, I mean, by the time there's enough power in the laser, at least based on what we understand, the nuke is already in a very damaging radius of whatever the target is. But if they have these laser systems, strategically placed far outside of civilian or military areas, okay, then perhaps. But if we're talking about a MIRV from Russia, which is going to be in the stratosphere, I don't know, man. Send a plane to intercept it and hope that the laser mounted on,
That's what I think it is. I know that they do. They have tested lasers on, mounted in big cargo planes because they're massive and they take up a lot of space, and they're chemical lasers, if I understand correctly. But again, I'm not an expert at all, so this is me relating what I've read. I imagine that would make Russia less of a threat, but I still don't think that.
I wouldn't trust it anyway.
No, well, I mean, it's
World War III. You're going to count on your survival. Hey, the government built some lasers. I don't think it would happen.
Hosted payloads. It says on its website, SpaceX says Starshield will have an initial focus on 3 areas: imagery, communications, and quote hosted payloads. The third of which effectively offers government customers the company's satellite bus, the body of the spacecraft, as a flexible platform. Well, what does that mean? Like it's going to carry something?
Hosted payload sounds like a virus.
Well,
that they're going to send.
A payload is usually some kind of weapon. If you're talking about the payload on a nuclear weapon, that's the warhead would be the payload. So I don't know exactly what.
Hey, look, if the
So
U.S.
this
goes
does
full low orbit ion cannon, I'm not complaining.
Right?
This does
I mean,
remind
I actually
me a lot.
am, but it's funny.
This does remind me a lot of the Star Wars stuff in the 1980s. So I wonder if this is actually a serious idea or just bluffing like it was in the 80s, obviously with Reagan.
I don't
'Cause
know.
He had some, for people not familiar, he had some plan, some crazy plan with lasers,
SDI.
whatever it is. Yeah,
It was SDI.
they called it
Strategic
Star Wars
Defense
as a
Initiative,
joke.
SDI.
Yeah, to shoot
Yep.
down Russian nukes, and the whole thing was bluff. But the point of it, I guess, intuitively
bluff?
was what?
I thought it was just that they didn't have the technology at the time.
Well, I think part of the reason they talked it up that way was because they wanted to get the Soviet Union to run up their
Spend
military
money, yeah.
budget and basically blow up. Yeah,
Now they have
economically.
the hypersonic weaponry. I don't know enough about it.
It's actually slower.
It's slower than regular intercontinental. Oh, why is it touted as indefensible then? They're like, we can't shoot down our hypersonic stuff.
Because they're talking about missiles, whereas an ICBM actually goes into orbit, and to get into orbit, it's 20,000 miles an hour is how fast you have to go, something like that, to break Earth orbit. Whereas hypersonic would be, what's the speed of sound is 750 miles an hour. Or
It's
something
five.
like that.
I think they travel 5 times speed of sound. It has something to do with hypersonic missiles travel low, closer to the Earth, and are harder to track and respond to. So with ICBMs, they go up, they go high, they go fast. But the higher it goes with the curvature of the Earth, the more range we have for detecting them. Whereas hypersonics are low and slow.
The escape velocity of Earth is 33 times the speed of sound. So a hypersonic missile is actually significantly slower than an ICBM.
Okay.
But yeah,
Hypersonic missiles. So this is check it out. Here you go. Yep. This is from a couple days ago. This is amazing. Hypersonic missile weapons are super fast. So you can see ballistic missiles, hypersonic and cruise. Hypersonic stays low and is outside radar detection and then it's too late.
Yeah, this says
Boom.
the U.S. Navy is developing
Wow.
directed energy systems as a potential defense against hypersonic.
It's a cool graphic.
And that's military
it's basically-
aerospace.com talks about the Navy's laser weapon defense. And if they're talking about laser weapon defense openly, then they've probably got some nasty laser weapon defense. Unless it's like a Star Wars bluff, like you were saying earlier.
This is basically what my point was. You can see right here in the graphic. They don't show the graphic that I watched a while ago about this shows the curvature of the Earth and explains why radar detection is limited. And it's because as the Earth curves, the radar goes out. And so there's certain areas where you're not going to see anything at the ground level, and the hypersonics track closer to the ground and then slam to the target before you realize it.
the Boeing YAL-1 airborne laser tested weapon system was a megawatt-class chemical oxygen iodine laser mounted inside a modified military Boeing 747-400F. It was designed as a missile defense system to destroy tactical ballistic missiles while in boost phase. I don't know that it's being used as tested.
So apparently these hypersonics go 20 times the speed of sound. So maybe,
Wow. So they could break
anywhere on the Earth in a matter of hours.
Yeah.
In less than an hour. Holy crap. In less than 1 hour. Man.
That's wild.
One day there's going to be like some prominent personality who's leading the charge against war or something. And then before anyone even realizes it, there's going to be a crater where his house used to be. And it's going to be, we have no idea what happened. No one can see it.
I mean, look, Russia, it's pretty clear that Russia shot down that Prigozhin guy. They shot down Prigozhin. Yeah, they shot down his plane. So I imagine that kind of technology in the hands of a regime like Russia or some other less than democratic regime would do just that. Smoke someone that is irritating them without
blow up a
democratic
16-year-old
regimes
in
can do it too.
a
But what if Starshield is actually radar detection from space to track hypersonics?
That's what I imagine.
So take a look at this, right? They're showing right here in this graphic that the signal, the wave, is coming from the ground and going up, and the radar can't detect beyond this angle. What if you had a radar from space? Then you'd have the inverse. Then it would be able to see everything happening.
Like a spider web, anything that comes in, you can pinpoint it with thousands of satellites up there. You know exactly where it is.
Now you've got space radar, in which case these hypersonics you can track. I like how the cruise missile just doesn't make it anywhere. It's just like 14 minutes, it barely moves.
When was the cruise missile invented? How long ago was that?
Oh goodness, I don't know.
I wonder if that was That's probably still after rocketry. I mean, V2 and
70s, I imagine, because they were using cruise missiles. Cruise missiles were the first thing I remember seeing when in the first Iraq War. I was 15 years old, and like they'd started shoving cruise missiles down Saddam Hussein's neck, and it was impressive. As a kid, to be like, whoa, that's actually happening.
The missile that Trump dropped while he was president, the mother of all
Moab.
Was that a cruise missile?
No, that is a gravity bomb. They call it. It's a thermobaric bomb. So it actually, when it hits the ground or when it detonates, first it shoots out a bunch of gas that blows up.
Oh, interesting.
So it ignites the gas.
It looks like the first cruise missile was invented during World War I by the Americans, but it wasn't used.
Really?
And during the interwar period, not many people were working on, but Germany went hard on the rockets.
And I could be wrong about the way that it works. I could be thinking of a different thing.
Sure.
But I know the Moab is it's the biggest munition that is not a nuclear weapon.
And to clarify, a cruise missile specifically is a missile that's supposed to hit a target on land. That's the point of it. That's why they call it a cruise missile, I guess.
They were
the
launching
V2, the vengeance weapon.
The V stands for vengeance. The V2 rocket.
It's the Vergeltungswaffe.
Where the V2s were the ones where the British pilots had to like tip them out of the way, right? Am I getting that one right?
It was a Nazi rocket.
I know that, yeah, because they weren't that fast, but it was a completely new technology.
I don't know.
You mean like with their plane?
So they have
could
to fly
in and
alongside it, and then you tip it with your wing, and it's just enough to veer it out off its course. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it wasn't really that effective from what I hear.
They just had a lot of them, and no one else did.
They poured their research and development into the V2 program.
That was part of Hitler's problem, is he always wanted to focus on very sci-fi-esque at the time, futuristic ideas instead of what was practical, and this was one of them. It didn't do the damage to London and England that was worth all the money they put into it.
Yeah, they wanted to just rocket England all day, every day, and then the nukes got invented.
So everyone's saying V1 is the missile that I'm talking about. It's the predecessor to the V2. Is the one the British would just tip out of the way with their own planes.
Have you seen? I think the V3
really?
then was the giant gun, right? The giant cannon that went for several miles. And like I said, it's a sci-fi. Oh wow, it's a giant gun.
Are you talking about the one that was on a rail?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And didn't they just blow it up or whatever? You can just bomb it.
The V3 cannon, the German super gun.
Yeah,
I've never heard of this
I've never
before.
heard of it either.
They had this big cannon that was ridiculously big. It had to be moved on rail, and it was not practical. I mean, anything that you have to that has to be like on rail to move, that's completely impractical. Yeah.
And it's easy to bomb. It's easy to destroy. Yeah.
Yeah, before like World War I, when they just had hot air balloons and stuff, they were extremely effective. Artillery on rail, but now with air support, they're just targets.
Yeah.
I mean, not just targets, but they're easily targetable from space. And I talk with a lot of confidence about military tech. I'm not a military guy. I just want to put that out there. I defer to anyone with combat experience or that's an expert on the weaponry, because I love hearing about this stuff.
It's crazy.
I survived the meme war.
2,754 civilians killed in London by V2 attacks and 6,523 injured.
But see, that's not really a lot when you consider the total death during the war and the amount of money that went into that versus the return. That was the problem. Yeah.
2 people per rocket. It's per rocket.
Right. That's not a really good investment at all. They'd be better off putting rocks on blimps and just having the rocks fall.
I mean, you're right, and we say that
Japan
now.
did this with bombs.
Yeah, if you think about the amount of money that was spent in Iraq, like every time that they shot a Hellfire at like a goat herder, because it would just be some random dude that got paid, whatever, $100 or whatever to go up on the hill with his old 1910 Springfield rifle or whatever, take a couple pot shots at the base, because the point is to just harass the Americans, and the Americans' reply was call in the helicopters, and they just started lighting up the whole hillside.
Oh, these are those
Fugo bombs.
Yeah,
This is crazy. Japan would send up balloons carrying bombs that would ride the jet stream for thousands of miles and then eventually drop the bombs on the United States in random locations.
Most of them just hit fields, though.
Yep.
That's a problem with trying to do that to the U.S. especially. It's such a spread out country.
Sounds like
China.
China was able to do it again. They found out a way to get a balloon over us. So,
Man, that's crazy. And I remember when I was little, I watched a documentary about it, and it was like it had this system where if it started to go too low, the pressure in the balloon would be going down, and then it would cause a bag to drop, which would then make it go back up where the pressure would expand. And then as the started to go back down, it would drop another, go back up. Yeah, and they timed it through these mechanisms to drop once it traveled a certain amount of time to hit the United States. Whoa. Yeah, I watched some video. Apparently, like some kids found a bomb and hit it with a rock and it blew up and killed them or something.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, like you're running through the woods and you find an explosive device. Kids are stupid.
That's the sad part about what's happening in Ukraine now too. I imagine they're mining the field.
Yeah.
It's just not only depleted uranium rounds underground, they're just irradiating the soil, but like just the landmines and stuff that are gonna be left over.
Drones that go rogue that fly off and they're like, I don't know where it went. We didn't see it explode. It's just gone. We don't know where it went. A kid's gonna find that drone. Like people are gonna find it. They're gonna stumble across it.
Oh, here we go. Look at this. May 5th, 1945, 6 civilians were killed near Bly, Oregon, when they discovered one of the balloon bombs in Fremont National Forest, becoming the only fatalities from Axis action in the continental U.S. during the war.
That's what I was saying. I think it only hit people once. Or I guess they didn't even hit them. They found it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. This must have been the story. It's Reverend Archie Mitchell and his pregnant wife drove up Gearhart Mountain the day with 5 of their Sunday school students in a picnic. When Archie was parking the car, Elsie and the children discovered a balloon and carriage loaded with an anti-personnel bomb on the ground. A large explosion occurred. The 4 boys were killed instantly, while Elsie and Joan Patsky died from their wounds shortly after. An Army investigation concluded that the bomb had likely been kicked or dropped, and that it had lain undisturbed for about 1 month before the incident. So that's what it was. That must have been what I had been watching. So they kicked it, I guess the assumption was. The kids ran up to it, and they're like, hey, look, an explosive, and they kicked it, and then it blew up. So, and people got to understand, too, there are undetonated bombs in Southeast Asia. Oh boy, be careful. There's a lot of places. I had a friend who went to Cambodia and was working with these. I don't remember the exact story, but he was talking about how there are landmines everywhere, and to navigate these fields, there are footsteps, and you're jumping from footstep to footstep in the dirt because that's the only place, that's the only way that you're safe and you won't blow up. And I was talking about going, I was like, yeah, we were thinking of going because there are these people who are doing, what they do is they release goats into these fields and then the goats explode. Oh. And so I was like, that's a crazy story and I'd want to cover that. And my friend was like, don't do it. He was like, the scariest, most stressful, disturbing thing in my life was traversing these fields. You don't want to do it, trust me. And we ended up not doing it, but that's the general idea. However, the tank buster mines require the weight of a vehicle to detonate. And so those are a lot harder to trigger and they're huge. But for the smaller landmines, they just will get a bunch of goats and field's all yours. And then boom, 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 the goats start exploding. Whoa. Crazy. Yeah. Rough. Yeah. They do another thing now where they have these big, they take a big ball and there's a bunch of bamboo sticks coming out with plates on the bottom. So it looks like, remember those suction cup balls? You'd throw at the wall and then it would suction cup its way down?
Yeah.
Yeah, they look like that. And the wind blows them around and they just blow up as they bounce around on landmines. Because they're pretty heavy. Yeah, and then they just get damaged and keep going until eventually they fall apart.
I'm thinking that you could maybe vibrate the soil and trigger them all at once if you could somehow set up, like Tesla was working on sending electrical current through the ground.
They're mechanical. I mean, you're not, I would say you're on the right track. You would need to heat them up substantially and detonate them somehow. I wouldn't know how to do that. Maybe a plane flying not too high up, just doing a laser sweep or something like that. Or like
stick metal poles in the ground all over the place and then send a low frequency through, or just tweak the frequency until you hit the trigger.
If you can navigate a field to stick poles in the ground that are covered in landmines.
How big is it, how much space do you need to trigger?
Explosives.
I'm telling you,
more
dude,
explosives.
You will not convince someone to invest in any of this technology when they can send goats into a field. I'm sorry, dude. They're going to be like, we got too many goats already. Send them in. Deer. How much? Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, for the region, it's goats. Yeah. And then the goats just blow up.
Or like an S strategic defense from above, where you can
you can't see,
use LiDAR to map the ground and see where they are, and then hit them with lasers.
I mean, I suppose so, but you're talking about expensive and high tech and stuff. It's easier to shove goats.
Bro, you're gonna go to the government and say we can spend $2 million.
Yeah, if it was in Ohio, maybe we got
$2 million for LiDAR or $10,000 for a bunch of goats. They're gonna be like, just do the goats.
Can I eat the goats when it's done?
You're not going to want to pick those things up.
You can't. I mean, what if they missed a mine? You don't go into minefields. Like, Minefields are like there's a significant argument against mines. Like they get left behind. They end up maiming kids. You saw it through all kinds of mines that were left behind after Vietnam and stuff like that. And it just ruins entire regions. And you have massive amounts of death and dismembered people and stuff. And it sucks. But what do you do when you've got tanks coming at you? You know, like there's only so many things that can stop a tank. You know, if you can knock the treads off a tank, but with a mine, then the tank's vulnerable. They have to get out of the tank. Then you can shoot the guys that are in the tank. But if you can't stop the tanks are going to smoke you and your buddies. So you deal with what you got. You know, you have to put mines out to stop them. You put mines out to stop them because, again, war is awful. War crimes are only war crimes if you are the loser.
You lose, yeah.
Yeah, but I guess the issue today is you don't need tanks if you can convince. So while propaganda has been a key component of war for the past 100+ years, propaganda nowadays is it's a million times where we were 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. You take a look at, say, a nuclear weapon, a MIRV, 12 warheads, 1,250 times more powerful than the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You take a look at the explosive power, and then go back in time to the origin of the first, the first time someone ever discovered combustion or combustible materials, and it's what 1,000+ years or whatever.
The Chinese, 200
right.
AD
they were
or something.
Doing, it was fireworks.
It started with.
Yeah, and I forgot what they were doing
guns.
something impractical with them. They had little rockets they would use to scare people or something because they would like fly at you, and then it took 1,000 years to get to the point where we could just blow up an entire city with one bomb. You take a look at propaganda, and we'd have to drop pamphlets from planes, and in 100 years we can beam our thoughts into your brain, no matter where you are. China has a massive apparatus for manipulating the American public in TikTok.
For the record, it was 1044 AD when gunpowder was invented in China.
And what was it for, did they say?
It was for...
Wasn't it for firecrackers just to
No, but I think there was
it
like
was invented by accident. They were trying to make an elixir of immortality. This is according to Chinese sources.
Well, most discoveries are they're called
first known instance.
They're discoveries because it was an accident. Something,
So that's like the moonshine thing where they're making moonshine and then they blow up. That kind of cliche. I guess it started in China. They were trying to live forever.
So it's 808 AD was the first reference to
808?
gunpowder. Yeah, that's what it says on Wikipedia.
Yeah, in the Warring States period, they had rifles. They weren't very good. Archers were actually
Flying
more
cloud
effective.
thunderclap eruptor. So right, I think it was they were shooting stuff out of it. Yeah. I don't know. I read something that like the initial stuff they did was just like shock and awe. They didn't really have like a good way to weaponize it.
Yeah, you scare the horses. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
And the elephants if you have to fight
Sulfur, realgar, saltpeter, and honey. Smoke and flames result so that the hands and faces have been burnt, and even the whole house where they have been working burned down. Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. And the Chinese invented the compass 1,000 years before Europeans did. Crazy, right?
Nice.
They were doing all sorts of crazy stuff.
I love
over there
those
in Asia.
Chinese, man.
They didn't really capitalize on the potential though. Like they didn't have.
Well, that's what's interesting about, as an Asian, I can say this, okay, about Asian culture is that very smart, yes, but not a lot of creativity. And that's why even today you see throughout also a lot of history, right? Chinese invented gunpowder, weren't using it practically.
Yeah.
Who started using it because you had to think outside the box. You've never seen this before, right? And there's a very Asian culture of, sort of this submissive, hey, follow the strict line, do this, do that, but not a lot of creativity. And I think you see this even in China for school. If you want to come to American school or whatever, like they'll just train you your whole life to take the SAT and you probably get a perfect score. But then what after that? What happens when you have to be, say, an engineer and you have to actually think creatively, right?
Well,
and it's something lacking in a lot of Asian culture.
I love that for 1,000 years they have gunpowder. These Southeast Asians, Chinese, are like, look at this stuff we made. Look what happens when you light it. Like, whoa. And then the Europeans like, I could kill a lot of people with that. And then they were like, wait, what? To be fair, the idea of killing people with it did come from China. I don't want to take that away from them.
Right.
Yeah. They have their whatever it's called, Huolongjing?
What's that?
It's the Chinese military treaty. What is this? This is a flying cloud thunderclap eruptor, and it looks like a gun. It looks like they loaded it with powder. They put a hole in it. Man, that's crazy.
Cannon, like a shotgun.
Yeah, it's like a cannon shotgun.
And it just shoots like metal and rocks and stuff. They would just use just ballista.
I think George
crazy.
Washington used to do that because they were running low on munitions, so they'd just shove whatever they could find into the cannons and just blast them. So you're getting hit with rocks, sticks, pieces of metal, a boot.
I gotta tell you, it is really crazy when you think about
That's like the railway
all of the
rifle
stupid
in
stuff
Fallout.
that we know from video games and movies would make you a warlord god, like demigod in 2,000 years ago or 1,000 years ago. You'd show up and be like, oh yeah, I know how to, start a fire. I know how to give me some bat crap and we'll start making some gunpowder. And they'll be like, making what? And then they'll be like, what?
Here, eat this mold and you'll feel better. They're like, what are you talking about?
See that red rock right
Penicillin.
there? See that red rock over there? Yeah. Melt it. What do you mean melt it? Just light it on fire. Let's roll. And then it's like, I have no idea how to make steel, but I know it exists, which means I could go to them and be like, you need to get carbon and iron and start doing something. And that is an advancement leaps and bounds above how long it took them. Like if just the fact that I can tell them oh, you need bat crap, just like we know little bits here and there that took humans tens of thousands of years to figure out. And we just watched a movie once and we have fragments of that information that if you went back in time and said, look, man, I have no idea how to make gunpowder, but I saw something about bat crap once. You've just jumped someone up 10 years, 20 years.
Yeah.
Sulfur, yeah.
Yeah. What's in the bat crap?
It begins with a G? I don't know.
Potassium.
Bat crap is guano.
It's a potassium something. Potassium.
I'm not sure what it is.
You mix bat crap with
Bat crap.
We should know this because
Is that what it is?
saltpeter and
there was a manufacturing of
That's crazy.
The caves in West Virginia were used to manufacture munitions for the Confederate Army.
Bird guano.
Because they had a bunch of bat crap. Yeah.
potassium nitrate and then charcoal
Right.
and
That's
sulfur.
what it is. That's what it is. Yeah. So bird apparently works too.
Oh,
We got a
bird
bunch of
crap?
chickens out there. Could you make gunpowder from chicken crap?
It smells like it.
It smells worse than that,
Smell
dude.
that sulfur coming off of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess you need to get the
But anyway, my
potassium nitrate.
point is to stress, not that I know how to make gunpowder or anything like that. Just that we've got a whole bunch of cursory knowledge. Like even just the fact that we know things exist. You go to someone and be like, hey, you can make a thing called a compass, where it's like, I don't know how they made it, but it was a piece of metal and it was on a pin and it pointed, we had an N in one area and then it would always point north and then someone's going to figure it out very, very quickly relative to how long it took humans to actually figure it out. Granted, you probably wouldn't be able to communicate effectively with them. You'd say bat crap and they'd be like, I have no idea what he just said. They would hear you say gobbledygook.
They probably just kill you before you got a chance.
Oh no, for sure. They'd be like strangely dressed person. You if you go back 2,000 years and you show up people, like the first thing that happens is they're pointing spears at you, screaming at you in a language you don't understand, and then they're just like, "You're a slave."
I'm only going if I can bring a gun. That's it.
Well, have you seen? You've seen? It was Evil Dead or was it Army of Darkness? Which one was it?
My boomstick.
Yeah, he goes back in time with the shotgun.
This is my boomstick.
Has the chainsaw
first
in
one
his
of you primates even touches me. God, what a great movie.
Stick.
I feel
How many shells
like
did he have?
how many? I would love to talk about Evil Dead. To be honest, that's an awesome.
It's a great movie, man.
I think that the heroes of Atlantis had the compass. My guess. I don't want to take the show into conspiracy town, but I don't see how they could have circumnavigated the globe with the Earth on Atlas's back without the compass, and then the way that they seem to have colonized Earth. So the importance of preserving data, because like we're saying, we have the data if we could go back in time, but they might have had it back then. It's the key is to be able to preserve it, probably in orbit in case a comet wipes out the surface, in glass or something in orbit, or in DNA. You can store data in DNA. All right, that's my derailment for the night.
Apparently, people were saying online, I just did a quick search, that you can use, they call it chicken manure for gunpowder too. So if you got chickens,
But the bat
Tim knew this. That's why there's Chicken City outside.
was the bat.
I have no idea how to extract saltpeter from any of this stuff. You need like alcohol or something?
You need potassium nitrate, sulfur, and charcoal.
But you need to get the potassium nitrate isolated, you need alcohol or something like
Okay.
that. I don't know. And like I don't even know how to make alcohol. Apparently it's like you get like wood alcohol or something.
Well,
Nobody
it's funny.
knows how to do this.
You talk about going back. It's crazy that people figure this out. Hey, let's take bat crab. Play around with
but
it. Yeah.
that's not how it is. It's not how it is. It's so like bread, for instance. Like how does bread come to exist? some like people are milling about, nomadic, hungry. They see wheat and they rip the top. They see horses eating the tops and they're like, hey, look, and they pull out and they're like, hey, I can eat this. They start grabbing a whole bunch of it, bring it back home, and then they have a big. They're like, hey, this stuff's hard, you can't eat it. So they pull the wheat groats out, put it in a big bowl, and they start eating them. Then eventually, someone like, hey, I'm gonna heat mine up because I don't like it cold, and we cook like humans figure out cooking. Then they heat it up. Then someone adds water to it. Then someone mashes it. It's just slowly over time. And the first bread is just like mashed grain. They put water in it, and then it made like a hard, flat bread. And then eventually somebody let theirs sit out on accident. It's just always one step at a time.
Yeah, yeast contaminated the flour.
Somebody probably was like, oh, grandpa has no teeth. He can't eat this. Let's break it up for him. So they mash it. No, for real though.
Yeah.
They mash it up. Then they put water in it and heat it. And they're like, here you go. And he's eating warm dough paste. And then someone was like, let's get it real hot. And then they saw what happened to it. And they're like, look. And then they're like, well, now grandpa can't eat it again because now it's hard. And they're like, whoa. But then someone ate it like, hey, I like this. Then someone made the dough, left it out, yeast contamination. It got really big and they were like, whoa. And then they cooked it and they were like, oh, like, it's just.
I think penicillin was also found on accident.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Look, that's why it's called discovery when it's discovered and not invention. You know what I mean? Or I often it is called an invention, but typically it's discovery. We are discovering it.
Yeah.
It exists and we stumble upon it.
Like Ben Franklin discovered electricity.
Did he really discover it?
He rediscovered it.
I don't know
I'm
if
sure
he
that
discovered
Zeus.
anything.
I think Zeus had it. If he could shoot lightning.
I'm pretty sure people had already been using it. I don't know that he. What did he actually?
For sure, the Baghdad battery produced electricity. It's a clay pot filled with vinegar with an iron rod in it, wrapped with a copper wire, and then you can chain these pots together and create electrical charge. And that's like 3,000-year-old technology at the least.
I mean, I got to be honest. Hearing this story about his kite experiment in 1752 just sounds insane.
Dude, this guy Ben. This is his country, man. This country is formed in this guy's belief structure. This is the guy that inceptualized the United States of America.
Maybe
I
he
kinda
had
feel
dirt
like-
on someone, and they're like, all right, we'll let you say that you discovered electricity.
I kind of feel like Madison did that because he's kind of the guy that's like the father of the Constitution. He wrote the Constitution.
I hand it to Ben because he came before everybody for 30 years and primed everybody for it. And like,
So this is it. He did not discover electricity. He was trying to prove that lightning was electricity.
wow.
Yeah. And so they could figure out a way to stop lightning strikes on houses. So they created lightning rods, which would then focus the lightning strikes away from the wood and would stop blowing up houses.
But harnessing it, that came later.
Harnessing it? What do you mean?
They
Like,
still can't. I don't think so.
Well, no,
Because
harnessing
you don't
electricity.
know.
I mean, not lightning, just electricity itself.
No,
when they started making like.
I think they had
gas-powered
always. I think for a long time there had been a general understanding, but I think people underestimate, humans. I have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure there was some minor use for a long time. I mean, if you go back to the Baghdad battery, what's the assumption that they were doing electroplating?
I think so.
Bunch of clay. What was it? A bunch of clay pots.
Yeah,
with
clay pots. You fill
lemon
them up
juice,
with vinegar or something acidic. So vinegar, wine. You could use lemon juice.
and then they would put copper wires in it.
Yeah, it'd be an iron rod sticking down the middle of the pot, wrapped with copper wire, and that would produce an electrical charge on its own.
Aliens. Because I gotta say, I can understand inventing bread, but I can't understand how someone accidentally makes a battery. Like a battery, like the Baghdad battery, sounds like someone knew what a battery was and said, like, I'm trapped here in the desert with little supplies. I need to make some kind of battery.
It's possible they had a cup, like a clay drinking vessel, and they were drinking wine, and they shocked themselves. Like maybe there was copper in it, and they got
That's
a
true.
shock.
Yeah.
Static
I think ancient
electricity.
civilizations were a lot more advanced than people realize. Some of them forgotten, lost, whatever.
I agree.
All knowledge has been lost. Yeah.
I think that it's funny when people talk about like the moon landing and they're like, we have Alex Stein on the show and he's like, how did we lose the technology, Tim? I'm like, we lost tons of technology. Like the one reference I often bring up is that we couldn't build skyscrapers above like 8 floors or whatever when we started expanding and building upward because the heat would build up too much and we couldn't exhaust it fast enough. And then the air conditioner got invented and now it's like, now we can. But the crazy thing is there were like native African tribes that had built their huts and structures to funnel heat up and out to keep the inside cool when it was hot outside. And it's like that technology existed over there and not over here. Now, when we build buildings, they create like tunnels that will pull because the hot air is going to go up. So they actually create a system where it pulls cold air from the ground and vents the hot air up through the roof. So it reduces energy costs for building skyscrapers. But we forgot that. Not to mention the Romans had concrete that could set underwater, and that's always the big one everyone references.
I bet
tons of technology has been lost.
I think that information is way more valuable than people realize.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes,
We've had such access to it as Americans with libraries and internet now, but like you lose it once, it's gone. Like you might have a generation of memory.
bro. They had
humans,
to
but-
like this is the crazy thing. They had to invent the idea of freedom. Like so, no, but for real, like certain ideas don't exist in certain cultures and certain languages. There was like I was reading a thing a while ago about words that have complex meanings in certain cultures that don't translate very well. So in like one African culture, they have a single word for the feeling you get when you are longing for someone, but you are watching them long for someone else and you know you'll never have them. They have like a single word to explain that idea. And it's like for us, we just I don't know what you call it, getting cucked. I don't know, like, right? It's like we kind of have a meme for it.
Covetousness.
Not even. And then in France, they have the phrase "the call of the void," and it's a reference to when you're looking down from a great height and you feel a desire to jump.
I've heard of that.
They just call it the call of the void.
It's so weird.
I don't know if they actually. I just read that in a magazine.
What is that? A vacuum pulling you towards it or something?
No, it's
Call
just
of
like
the void.
The way that I had heard it described is like you're driving on a highway and you have that instinct to just jerk the steering wheel.
I'll feel it on the
It's
I've
just
never
a
had
bad
that.
idea.
I don't know about that.
That's
I've
the
never
one
had
that I read. This is the way they described it. Yeah.
I've never experienced that.
Yeah.
I'll get
I've
like-
had the like looking down from a great height and being like, wow, you feel like you can just feel the jump. And
It might be wind pulling you because I'll feel it on the subway track. When a subway car goes flying by, I'll feel pulled towards the
that's
track.
something different.
all in your head.
The call of the void is a reference to something specific.
Yeah.
That people want to jump from like I'm not saying jump to your death. It's like it's like to just jump down under the assumption that you're okay, you're fine. So it's usually like you jump off a few feet and you walk away, but from great heights you can't tell how high it is. I had a friend who broke her leg jumping off the second story of a building because she didn't realize how high it was, and it's like
I used to hang.
there was
and
no
then
intent to
drop.
hurt yourself.
If you ever need to get out of the second story, you hang and then you drop.
But
down to like
here's the
60.
crazy thing about language. How do you I remember the first time someone told me, "Oh, this word can't be translated. I don't know how to translate it." And I'm like, "How do you not know how to translate a word?" It's because the idea in your mind doesn't have words in another language.
I think they don't have the word for love in North Korea.
There's no word for snow in the whatever the Hawaiian language is.
You know, what's crazy to think about is not just the words, but how you perceive the world based on language, right? So someone can come into this country, for instance, and learn English, but if they think in the world in some like non-even Western language, they perceive it existing on Earth in a totally different way than we do. You know what I mean?
They're different
Yeah.
people. Like personalities change. Like people are like, oh, I've heard like when someone speaks Spanish, they're like, you're a certain way when you speak Spanish, but when you speak English, you're a completely different way.
So the main reason I brought all this up is a lot of philosophical ideas that we take for granted. Heck, the idea of zero as a number had to be discovered.
Yep.
And so there was a period where if you went to the average person and said, "Let me tell you about some math." So let's say you're starting at zero, right? They'll go, "Huh?" Like zero. Like let's say you have nothing. They'll be like, "Huh?"
Yeah, because there's no nothing in reality. It's a weird concept.
But it's just like they don't know that. They don't understand that concept. We grow up, we learn these things. It becomes commonplace to us. So, in today's day and age, you look at the philosophy that was written and these great philosophers who are coming up with these ideas, and we're kind of like, it took, you had to figure that one out. I've always known, well, it's because we're surrounded by people who generally understand these things, and that information is given to us.
Do you think that we're limited in our ability to think by the language we know?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you don't think we can think without language?
Yes. To a certain degree, yes.
There are different ways of thinking. And I'm not going to pretend to know all of them or whatever. What I do know is, and depends on the person who's listening, but I'm assuming some people in here can think in words, images, sounds. Some people can't think in images. Some people think in, they describe it as just like raw thought. There's no inner monologue. There's no voice. Some people think in multi-track, more than one thing at a time. I have this weird thing where I can be daydreaming about my plans for a video game while I'm talking. And so I can be literally just autopiloting my ideas and language while I'm imagining what I'm going to do when I go back to my video game.
It's like singing and playing guitar kind of at the same time at flow state where your body
but this is right. It's also how you can write a song as you're playing. So it's how people are freestyling. their brain is planning the words ahead before they say it. So it's multi-track mind.
Freestyling different thoughts at the same time. That's cool.
So the important thing is, like the ideas of classical liberalism start to emerge around what was like late 1600s, 1700s.
Yeah.
It was Enlightenment, yeah.
When we started getting all those ideas. And it's hard, it's crazy to think that back then they did not have the concept of like personal responsibility and individual liberty. Like before the United States, for the most part, I mean, granted, there's Rome, but after this period with European colonialism and European monarchy and stuff, the general idea was that if you were a world leader, it was because of divine providence. God wills it.
Mm-hmm.
Divine right.
And then all of a sudden, you have the founding fathers being like, I kind of think we're all equal and we're all people, and you're just making that up, and we should govern ourselves. And they're like, uh-oh.
Arguably, the first time that concept was actually like put into law was the Magna Carta. We talked about the Magna Carta a couple days ago. And that wasn't everybody. That was the actual lords trying to get some kind of recognition from the king as equals. I don't think the actual peasants were written in the same way that the landowners were, but it was the first step towards all people are created equal in the eyes of God or whatever.
You know what really blew my mind? The first time I read about the discovery of air.
What was that like?
Because we are raised in a world where it is commonplace to understand we live in a gaseous atmosphere. But there was this dude, and what they would do back in the day is they had these brass balls with holes in the bottom and a straw that comes up, a tube. And what they would do is they would take it, dip it in water, put their thumb over the hole, pull it up, and then let go, and it would pour the water over them. So then this one dude is like, well, you put it in the water and then cover it. What if I cover it and then put it in the water? And when he did, no water went inside. And he goes, there's got to be something there blocking the water from going in. And that's where he came up with the idea of air, because there's nothing. Like, you just can't see it. You don't feel it. The wind is like some element, they would describe it as. And this guy was like, there's air. And then all of a sudden there was this discovery and this knowledge that people had, like, oh, there is something there, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
So who discovered transgenderism? Because I'd like to go back in time and have a peaceful word with him.
That's a long time ago.
Well, let's talk about John Money but to go back to ancient knowledge and stuff. But who was the other guy? Kinsey. You got to save that stuff for Seamus. But I'm sorry. I just love this idea when we're talking about Benjamin Franklin discovering electricity. You know, he's not really discovering it. No. He's like, I bet lightning is electricity. And then I just think about that and I'm like, wow, do we really take this stuff for granted? Because even right now, there's probably, it's a fact that there's a bunch of really stupid, obvious things we don't know as humans. And in 100 years, they're going to be like, they didn't know that, like, you know, X was Y.
I think we're
like,
psychic, and it's going to be so obvious to people in the future. They'll be like, these morons took so long to accept it. Like when you call your friend and they're calling you at the same moment, oops, that it wasn't someone you didn't know calling you. It was the same person you were calling. Just weird stuff, you know, or where you can look at someone and kind of, you know what they're thinking without them having to tell you.
I mean, maybe. I don't know about all that, because
I think it's like dreams and stuff. Like dreams, we haven't figured out what dreams are yet. They're going to tell in the future. They'll be like, those idiots.
I mean, we have ideas, but the interesting thing about most of our scientific ideas is that they tend to be wrong. Isn't that crazy thing? I love this. I was reading about how the way we view the human body and the brain is based on the current version of technology that is ubiquitous. So before, 100 years ago, when steam was becoming this prominent thing, the brain was viewed as a pressure machine and it worked through pressure. And now that we have computers, it is viewed as these liberals are like, we're wet robots. You know, that's all we are. They're just basic. And the human brain is probably something infinitely more profound than just to call it a computer. It's probably, it's going to be 100 years from now, and we're going to have quantum holographic, computational reality bending devices, and we're going to be like, oh, it's what a human brain is. A human brain is basically just a functioning quantum, refraction device for manipulating reality.
And they might still be wrong.
And exactly. And then it's going to be 100 years later, and they're going to be like, can you believe they actually thought that? Those crazy people. Everyone knows the brain is just made of cheese. Who knows? But it is crazy to see like how everything is always wrong. Like they used to drink mercury to treat syphilis.
Yeah.
It's like that was what you had to do, and now we're like, well, that's wrong.
I don't know. It's sort of like you have to not dumb yourself. You have to think and live in the terms of like your compatriot humans at that period of history. Because like I think of the subatomic spin of nature, these subatomic spinners, they're called, quarks and things like that. But if I talk to people as if your brain is a bunch of quarks, they're going to look at me like I'm an idiot because it's too advanced. They're like, oh, you were born too early. You're
But how do we even know the
ahead of your
quark
time.
is the fundamental?
It's not. It's just one we can see at the moment, the smallest
Exactly.
particle we can currently see.
At first, we're like an atom. Can we split the atom? And then we did. And then we blew people up with it. That's the funny thing. It's like a scientist is like, Eureka, I've split the atom. And then some dude is like, I can kill a lot of people with
What
that.
if you can split a lot of atoms?
Isn't it
the
war
same
that
time.
leads to the greatest like innovations and inventions? It's
Yeah,
wartime.
all the time.
Frequently.
Right?
All the time. Yeah.
Horrifically, yes.
Yep. That's why I in Europe, there was this that was a great story I was reading where they have the archers shooting at each other. So what one side did was they made it so that what are they called? The notches or the nocks or whatever they're called, notches on the arrows were really small so that the drawstrings of their enemies they could not use, but the arrows with the larger spacings in them could be used on their thinner. So it's like all the arrows you shoot at us, we can shoot back, but you can't shoot the arrows back at us.
Huh.
Yeah. Clever.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But the thing about Europe is that you have Mediterranean abundance of food, which leads to population growth. And then you also have a finite amount of space. So when you get a large population and then eventually nowhere to go, they start fighting over resources, which leads to rapid competition, weapons and technology and tactical developments, and finally colonization. They eventually just build boats and say, we're getting out of here. This is crazy.
Yeah, one of the things about living in a status quo society is that taking risks and doing radical, like in a war, you have very little choice. You take radical risks, but we're kind of disincentivized to do it in this culture. And I understand why, because you want it to stay balanced. You don't want someone to build new fusion bomb right now, because then everyone's got a fusion bomb. But it almost hinders innovation in a way.
I think you look at England and kind of the Anglosphere contributing probably a lot of, America and England, a lot of the world's technology today or is invented here. And, you kind of go back, look at a place like England, right? It's cold, not a lot of resources, can't really do a whole lot. So you got to think creatively. And I think it's interesting how English creativity seems to have contributed a lot to history, and then obviously largest empire, all that stuff.
Isaac Newton. I was reading about physics and how Isaac Newton's discovery of allowed for long range ballistics, which allowed the British Navy to dominate the world. They had long range cannons; they could hit boats before the boats could hit them, and that was like
Principia Mathematica.
Oh yeah, that was Newton's book.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that, like with England, I'm sure there was great minds there, but with the internet today, we see just such a jump in information and knowledge amongst humans. Do you think the fact that they had such a far-reaching empire, they just brought people together for better or for worse, and that bringing of people together is just you shared ideas, you shared food recipes, you shared materials that you might not have had access to, and so that was what the jump is in our information as a species.
I think
rather than just England being unique, it's just an empire will do that.
That kind of, when you have different societies mixing together and interacting, especially if it's a peaceful interaction. Now, granted, obviously, not all of colonial British Empire was peaceful, but there were plenty of places that were interacting with Britain in their colonies that were not actually the colonies. So if you're in like the interior of Asia, that wasn't British colonies, but you did have the Silk Road and
right.
all that kind of stuff, and that really does help to facilitate learning from because you're interacting with other cultures, and one culture that might discover something because they don't have a taboo that another culture does might be able to pass on the knowledge. There's a lot of taboos that cultures have, like whether it be types of food, or you have to dress this way, whether it be religions or certain behaviors that will get you killed in the Amazon but won't get you killed in the desert and stuff like that. So it's like those kind of interactions really do help societies to progress.
There's this idea that it's not the strongest of the humans that will survive, but the ones that are the most adaptable to change. That might actually be a Darwin quote. Yeah. And so I'm wondering, like, the Romans were extremely adaptable. They would conquer and take people's technology and then call it Roman technology and then move on. And I wonder if we're in a place in the world right now where communism is a technology that people think maybe is they think that being the most adaptable, like we're in a culture war to decide to show people what they should adapt into, I think. And communism to a lot of people looks like an easy path out. And it's like, is it? But you were shaking your head immediately when I brought up the word communism. Like, you don't think it's the right I don't think it's the right adaptation.
Because it's totalitarian. It's the problem. The root problem with communism is that it's totalitarian. You don't get to have another opinion, and if you have the wrong opinion, then you end up either, nowadays it's cancel culture, but back in, so my buddy Zoltan, the guitar player from Five Finger Death Punch, he grew up in Hungary, okay, when it was communist. And, he would say something and his parents would be like, shut up. You're going to get someone, they're going to come and take you away. He's a very intelligent guy. He's gifted. He was put into the smart people schools when he was young. He was taken away from his family and stuff. And, you get that kind of stuff. You don't get to, make decisions on your own and stuff. So it's you don't actually have the option to decide to do something else. They will decide what's for.
Which ultimately is a lack of adaptation. If you can't adapt in a system, if it's totalitarian and you're unable to adapt, then the system will falter and fail.
It's not about adaptation. It's about the inability to make decisions on your own. So there's no creative process. There's no markets. There's no exchange of ideas. This is the way it is, and that means there's no growth in your society. There's no progress in your markets and stuff like that. So it's all bad.
I think communism in many ways is kind of an example of falling victim to change instead of adapting to it. Because you look at even the social situation where communism originates from, right? Industrial revolution, Europe's changing very fast. There's the good, there's the bad. And a lot of people, because, you look at a place like Russia, right? That was obviously the first communist revolution there, because Tucker Carlson brings this up a lot, because they did not properly adapt to industrialization, the changing world in the right way. What happened, right? They fell to the Bolsheviks, the Tsar, fell out of favor and all that stuff. And with most communist revolutions around the world, arguably even including our own right now, it really comes down to a failure to properly adapt to change, and then the change basically just destroys you, right? And I think with America, you could point to a lot of things, maybe the failure to adapt to the internet and technology. There's an argument to be made there, right? That's definitely accelerated the kind of left-wing push of the culture and all that, and probably a lot of other factors.
I think it's that you have the older generation that keeps ignoring it as the internet starts growing. So if you look back to the advent of the internet, you have people saying it's a fad, it's never going to take off, it's nothing. And then you have its expansion. Young people have completely embraced it and started using it. I'm a little kid. We had CompuServe on DOS. Then we ended up with AOL. And so I'm using the internet. I grew up on it. These older people keep just maintaining their status quo systems because it's too hard to move their monolithic structures. And this happens for a lot of industries, but with communications, it results in a generation that speaks a different language.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're going to get a cultural bifurcation like what we have now. The people who believe in freedom use the internet and like posting memes, and the communists who fell victim to the algorithmic manipulation for money, who are now psychotic, and these worldviews can't come together. Look, the story of that girl who was raised by wolves or whatever, it's not literally raised by wolves, but the wild girl. And she could never learn English. She never learned language, and by the time she was like a teenager and they find her or whatever, they try saying like, here's how to speak. She could only ever grunt and say basic things like food.
Yeah.
Hungry, and could never actually have complex conversations because the brain never developed. So what happens is, if you have someone who grows up in the communist world of algorithmic manipulation and someone who grows up in the freedom, meme-loving, bulletin board system world of the internet, the hacker culture stuff, these two worldviews will never come together, and you're not going to be able to explain to the communists why their worldview doesn't work because their brains are wired to be controlled and be commanded.
That's why some people are literally NPCs, right? We always use that term, non-playable character, but it's true. Yeah, right. It's true.
These people have been programmed through schools and through, I think mostly through school. They go to college. So they're spending their life from 5 years old, let's say preschool, 4 years old, till 22, maybe 24, 26, depending what degree they're getting, where they're always just told what to do. And in their life and their brain and everything their brain is constructed around, life is, I will be told what to do and I will do it. And then you have other people who are like, I will find my own way and figure life out on my own. You can't convince someone whose brain is hardwired to be commanded that they should break free and be independent. You can. It's not completely true. I'm saying it's very, very difficult and it's painful for people. That's why Brandon Strzok talks about the story of when he finally got red-pilled and realized what was going on. It physically hurt him.
Dude, it's so interesting to think that every society could get to a point where it needs to adapt to modern tech, and if it doesn't, it falls into totalitarianism, and then it will erupt into a revolution.
Or anarchy or chaos. Something's going to happen. Yeah.
And then it'll just be an explosion of pain and violence until they reform a new society to get to a place where they need to adapt again. And are they going to make the same mistake again? Like you said, the internet. We should be, first of all, we should be looking at this stuff and be like, oh, this is all able to be spying on me and I'm using it every day. I need the software code, all of it. We should be adapted to that already. We should be using this to govern ourselves. That should be done. We should be local governance. We should be moving tax money around locally, deciding where our tax money goes. Like, what are we waiting on? Big Daddy to do it for us? That's totalitarianism.
Right, but you have half the country that wants Big Daddy to tell them what to do.
Yeah. Your mind is like a muscle. If you're not working it out, it's going to be a shriveled, sad piece of meat. So that's what I took from what like Tim was saying, that these people, they're on autopilot. They're in the lazy boy from the time they're born. They get the tablet, they get YouTube, they've got algorithms, they turn on the smart TV. They don't have to think. So that muscle is not being worked.
You know what, though? I think there's an interesting argument to be made that doesn't every society have that, right? Like, how many people in any society, in any point in human history, more than 20 to 30% of the population truly thinks for themselves, right? I think a lot of the times some people are naturally kind of followers and leaders. That's why you have both. I think the problem now is that now that they have control of, internet and everything like that, you can very easily manipulate the followers now to, go towards the side of evil. Whereas, say, I don't know, 1950s, whatever conservative decade we want to look at, most people back then probably weren't thinking for themselves either. But you had people, first of all, you didn't have the internet, so manipulation wasn't as easy as it is now. But I think probably you also had a lot of people who were kind of more responsible, paternalistic cultural leaders that weren't trying to push the destruction of their own country onto the people.
But you see Hitler used the radio for sure to manipulate and control people and push them towards evil ends. That's
radio changed things.
Big example. Huge. And when you play Civilization, which that's like the biggest change in the game, radio. When radio is developed, it alters the human species like beyond measure. The ability to communicate across long distances in real time.
Well, it's the creation of the
mass broadcast.
It's when they built the Eye of Sauron. All of a sudden, you have a singular broadcast tower telling you what to think and feel. And this is the authority and everyone wants to hear. Before it was like word of mouth. Everything was very local. You'd go to your church, you'd hear what people were saying. You'd look at the local paper, but there were competing papers and the newspapers were getting big. But once radio happens, all of a sudden, people start getting these boxes that are telling them. And for a long time in the United States, you had only a couple networks, and they all marched in lockstep as to what was true and what you must believe.
And that's the thing, is even in America, it's only been the past few decades where people even question what they see on TV, right? When Walter Cronkite went out and said the Vietnam War is bad, basically, the country believed it, right? During World War II, I don't think anyone really questioned what they heard on the news media, the radio. And so I think even in this country, it's probably still a problem, And historically was, of course.
The internet breaks it, and now we're going back to how people, more localized communities. The problem is they're not physical; they're
parasocial. Yeah.
Well, what it is you would have a region that would have a culture and a way of speaking and a kind of food based on what was there, and their ideas were based on the world they lived in. Now with the internet, you'll have a conservative living next to a liberal. The conservative has his community online. The liberal has their community online, and next door to each other, they don't like each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it used to be geography dictated your culture in a huge way. It doesn't matter anymore. You've got people in the United States that agree with communism. Right. I mean, it's crazy. That would have never happened 30 years ago.
I remember 30 years ago, I had friends in my neighborhood that I didn't like kids that were mean, kids that I just didn't want to be around, but that was who was in my neighborhood, so that's who I was around. And I suffered some abuse because of it. So in a way, it's better that I don't have to interact with those people, even if they're next door. I can get online and talk to the cool, smart people.
But that's a part of life too.
Exactly.
And now you can avoid that situation.
And if avoiding it's probably a problem, probably causing a rift.
Right.
You're supposed to interact with people you disagree with.
Right.
And supposed to figure out how to get along with people you don't get along with.
Exactly.
Why do you say supposed to?
I think it's just part of our evolution, what's got us to where we're at, part of the American dream and part of the founding fathers. They all kind of, I like how they would argue. And
I guess I have a different take on what is evolution, and then because I don't think that the human race has really considerably evolved in the past 200 years.
You think? you think I'm kind of off about?
I just think that evolution
Just kind of off in general.
Yeah, just basically a little wrong.
I think that evolution, it requires an outside force. Like, so you don't like evolution is genes that have produced an adaptation to something that is an outside force. So like the way they figure that eyes evolved, there were cells that were, when we were without eyes and stuff in the water and stuff, the cells that happened to be receptive to light, that could actually just see just light and dark, right? Those are the ones that ended up being the ones that could give
more likely to survive.
Yeah, more likely to survive. And so without some kind of outside influence, you don't get an evolution.
Allegedly,
the evolution of the eye is an awesome video you guys should watch. I don't know the exact. I think if you search evolution of the eye explained, you'll get the video I'm probably referring to. But they break down how you have these cells and it's a competition. They're just all competing for the free energy available. Some of these cells are being hit by light, and the light they're more receptive to it. Yeah. This gives them an advantage in data. They're now getting a binary set of data, light or dark, which allows them to see if something. So basically now, if it's just dark, you can't see where the free food is. Mm-hmm. But now with light added to the mix, you'll see dark in a pool of light, indicating potential free energy. This maybe it was only a 0.1% increase in the free energy acquired by these cells, but it resulted in them being more successful over a long period of time. What ends up happening is, as multicellular organisms evolve, you get like dimples, because a dimple allows light to hit from multiple angles, giving you more depth and understanding of where the light is coming from. Then you get, the reason there's two is because it creates a depth of field. Mm-hmm. So now you can perceive how far away an object might be. So all of these things are just evolved because it's the most natural thing within our system in terms of how light operates.
Dude,
it's crazy. It's an amazing video.
It's super smart, and also like one of the arguments against like humans' ability to interact with reality. So there are philosophers that say you can't actually know what's real because you have your brain is actually interpreting the things that you say.
Brain in the vat.
Yeah, and the argument against that is without an existing world out there to perceive, you don't get evolution. Like without an existing world to interact with. So that means
I don't think that disproves brain in a vat.
No, not brain in a vat. I'm talking about the idea that we can't that there is no reality. So that we can't actually know what reality is. That's an argument that's made. But the fact that that we've evolved means that there is a reality out there for us to have responded to.
I was having a conversation with someone a few years ago out in Vegas. I think it was in Vegas. And the question I asked was, if I take this phone right here and I throw it at that window, what will happen? What will happen, Ian?
It'll hit the window and bounce off, make a noise, maybe leave a dent, mark in the wood or something.
All right, a definitive answer. And there's other acceptable answers. It will break the window and fly outside. It'll bounce off and the phone will shatter. The phone will break into a couple different pieces.
It will land in my hand because I have lightning reflexes.
Or you'll catch it. And so the point I made was, are you thinking about your circumstances in terms of this is what will happen? Are you thinking about things in terms of the most likely thing to happen? Or are you thinking about things in terms of there's a 10% chance that it'll do this, a 17% chance it'll do this, a 23% chance it'll do this, and a 47% chance it'll do this, and then you're creating contingencies based on the probabilities?
I usually think in contingencies, but I found people think I'm psychotic if I talk in contingency. So I've got to pick really quickly the most likely one and kind of flush it out and see if it's psycho.
What I mean to say is, you need to figure out when it's appropriate to look at a circumstance of someone wants to throw a phone at a window, instead of just making the assumption it will do X, but to consider what are the probabilities and possibilities, and then what are your plans in the event of A, B, C, or D. But it's not appropriate to do that in every single circumstance. Yeah. Sometimes if you're in a burning building and you're like, let's figure this one out, you're probably just going to have to go for the most, like, get out of the building. But there may be alternate paths with higher rates of success. You just don't know, but you've got to
it's outside the box. I actually tweeted this out yesterday. When you're thinking outside the box, have about 60 to 90 different possible outcomes in your mind. You don't have to adhere to any of them, but just know that there are those many. And that's when you're thinking outside the box. But there are situations like you're just saying, burning building, you don't have time. You're in the box. You need to get out. So you do what you got to do with what you got.
We're going to Super Chats, so if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and head over to timcast.com, become a member to support our work directly. Let's read what y'all have to say. We got Culture Abduction says first, and shout out to the Dallas mayor who switches sides. Here. Clint Torres is back with another howdy, people. Howdy,
Clint.
What's up, Clint?
Right on. Jeremiah D. Mac Roberts says StarscapeChronicles.com, new sci-fi universe. Very cool. Very cool. I've completed my first run through of Baldur's Gate. Now I'm wondering if I should play, what is it, Starfield?
Starfield, yes. It sounds like,
But it's woke.
yeah, there's some woke elements, but you said Baldur's Gate's got some of those elements too?
Well, Baldur's Gate has you can create a character who has like a male face, a female body, a deep male voice, but identifies as non-binary, and like it. So if you try to randomize your character, you're going to get a purple-haired, masculine, like dude with boobs.
Sounds like it's similar level as Baldur's Gate, but it's fun.
But the
I
game
enjoyed
itself isn't. I mean, I guess the fact I'm pretty sure in Baldur's Gate everyone's gay. No, I'm not saying that to be mean. Like all the characters are homosexual.
Or they're all bi.
Well, I guess pansexual is a better way to put it.
Pansexual.
Yeah, because, and it's funny if you think about video games, they have to do it that way. Because if the general idea is that you can customize your own character to be anything, and you should have an option to romance your characters, they have no choice but to make it so all the characters are just banging everybody and don't care. Like,
You know what sucks? I grew up my childhood playing a lot of GTA. I've waited now 10 years for the next game, and it's like one of the things in my life. That's the last video game I'm going to play and I'll be adult, right? It's just GTA 6. And I know at this point, the fact that it's probably going to come out 2027, 2028, I know exactly how it's going to be.
well, what they're doing is the character's female now. For the first time, it's going to be a female character.
Can I guys spoil a little bit of something from Starfield?
Sure.
It's not major at all.
Okay.
So there's this little note that you find, and because the game was delayed, there was a guy so excited to play the game, he had cancer. Never got to play the game. So in his honor, they put a little note in the game that you can go and find and collect, and it's just like happy hunting or happy exploring the universe. It's really sad, but that's what it reminded me of. It's like these games, like really people get so excited, and
yeah.
So in
Stuff
like
happens.
World of Warcraft has done this, I think, on multiple occasions where I think in Burning Crusade they did this. Someone who played a lot died of cancer, and so the character became an NPC in the city that you could go and talk to and interact with. So like immortalized it.
One day,
Well, let's
with AI, you'll be actually still talking to the real person.
Yep, that's creepy. Let's read some more. Let's read some more super chats. Where are we at? Melinda Lou says, has the team considered virtual tickets to the Miami event? Yes. So I don't want to say too much just yet, but we're currently navigating how we're going to do the live portion of it, and there is a decent probability the live show will just be the whole show. So this is a Friday night show. Instead of doing the normal Friday night show, it will be a members only for the full thing. But this will include the pre-show. This is where we can do the pre-show, the comedy, the show, and the after show all in one go. But we're not completely sure that that'll be the way we'll do it. And then what we would do is we would immediately upload the podcast to all podcast platforms. We would then put the clips on YouTube like normal. But the issue is, if we're going to have all these awesome people, the last thing we want to do is be like, we're doing the normal, this is a YouTube show, and so we want Alex Stein to be able to just like, we want to own the show and not have to worry about anything and make it the most entertaining thing imaginable, which means we probably have to control it. But we're not 100%. The general idea for now was pre-show is not live, it's only at the venue. The show will be live on YouTube as per normal, and then the after show is, at the venue only. And then I thought, yeah, but members who can't travel, like we got to figure something out. So the idea might be just like the whole Miami event will be available for members on timcast.com. Again, we'll have to figure that one out. Not 100% sure that's the way we're going to do it though. But I don't know. We'll see. We will see. And let's read some more.
Dude, it'd be cool to have a 3D camera on stage that you could watch from. If you have like special access and be there on stage with everybody, like
there's no way we can set that up. I mean, we might be able to
360 cam is what I meant.
Yes, we can do it, but I don't think Rumble has the capabilities for 360 camera ingestion.
Yeah, you would have to do some kind of alternate stream. Yes.
YouTube does.
So yes, it exists, and I've done them before, 360 degree live streams. but they fell out of pop. Like no one cares to do them anymore. We used to carry the monopod with the 360 camera, and it would stream, and then you chose what to look at, which is cool, but super low res. It could be cool to do like have one of the chairs be a 360 cam. You know what we could do?
We in that chair, we just set it up.
Well, we could just record
Every
and then
episode.
upload the 360 live podcast. Watch
That's
it if you
cool.
want. Put it on Rumble.
Because
Make
when
it
you
so you're
if you
in
have
the show.
goggles on and you can like
Yep.
turn and look at the guys that are talking, it's so awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the real the real goal is to do stereoscopic 360, which is it's hard to do, but you have a sphere with two cameras, so it's not one camera, it's two for every camera. You double it up, so that way you can create depth of field. So for someone who's putting on a VR headset and looking around, you actually can see depth. But it doesn't work perfectly because the cameras don't move. So there's AI building gaps. You know, whatever. Let's read some more. Devin Grissom says, Tim, I think we need to see James Lindsay back on the show with Phil.
I'd love to hang out with Jim. I haven't had a chance to meet him in person, but we have corresponded via the internet, and he is
Well,
a very
let's-
friendly guy.
Well, you just got to tweet at him. Tell
Jim,
James
come
Lindsay
on.
to come on the show.
Come on, Jim.
Degrowth.
You're in D.C. a lot. Come on.
We should do a culture war
That would
with
be
with
great.
James Lindsay. Yeah, would you want to do it?
I would totally do
Oh,
it,
let's do it. All right, what do we have? Skylar Pearson says, Tim, you should look up Publius Claudius Pulcher and the Sacred Chickens. You're gonna love it. I thoroughly enjoyed the show with Matt Gaetz last night, my favorite rep. Thank you to you and your team for all that you do. You know, we had Ami Horowitz scheduled, and Matt Gaetz' team said, hey, we want to know if there's any availability. And I'm like, oh, yo, Matt can come whenever he wants. Not only do we need to like get the opportunity to hear what he's talking about with this continuing resolution, it's a tremendous opportunity for the American people. I'm a big fan of Matt Gaetz. He's actually doing things. I'm just, you know, as soon as we leave the show, I'm going to my girlfriend. I'm like, Matt Gaetz may have just shut down omnibus spending. I'm hoping he wins this. This is crazy.
That would be amazing.
And it's just like, who else is doing stuff like this? No, now credit to Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey. There's a handful of really great people, but I think Matt Gaetz is just doing the most.
He's an aggressive communicator. He likes building coalitions. He's good at it.
I know, and I'm impressed with his he is tactful. He even talked about, you know, he was talking about he's worked with AOC on it was the stock. I think it was him and AOC on this like stopping stock trading within insider trading stuff. So I think he does a great job. But I do feel bad for Ami because it's always rough when it's like you book a guest and then it's like the air will be sucked out of the room by this very big, very important show. We've got someone coming in who's in the middle of this big news story. I will also add, though, I got a shout out from Richie McGinnis. We were on MSNBC. They used clips of the show to like talk about the Republicans or whatever.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm like, hey man, I'll take it. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to get firsthand view of and breakdown of what's going on with Congress. All right, let's go back to where we are. Remington says Styx is back in the States. Are you going to have him on? No comment.
Oh, is he?
So there are a couple individuals who have made it to the States. So we usually don't announce anything because then when someone cancels, it sucks. We are trying to get Styx, X, and Hammer on the show. We have been trying to get Styx, X, and Hammer on the show forever since the show began. He's like, well, I'm a big fan. He's a very rational, very smart guy, and he has great content. And I think Carl Benjamin is also in the States currently.
He's in Florida. He put up a picture of a horrible pizza, and I don't approve, Carl. I don't approve. I don't care that you're from England and that like you're not used to good-looking food. That pizza was an abomination.
Zelensky's here too right now. Oh yeah. That's a big,
Oh wow! Oh yeah, we'll have him on the show.
Gotta have him on.
I'm a huge fan of that awful pizza.
It's gross, right?
It's half Hawaiian, half pepperoni,
Was it
and
like-
it's like cut wrong,
Was it good for him? He liked it?
bro.
Well, I mean,
You know, it's crazy. Florida has so many New Yorkers, and yet I've never had good pizza in that state.
really, that's
That's
crazy. So there is a rumor. There are people that say that the water in New York and,
I've heard
and
that, yes,
Connecticut
yeah.
is why the pizza's so good.
it's three things: the water, the air, altitude, and the flour they use. So there was a place I went to in Florida that advertised New York pizza, and they actually said we import our water and our flour from New York and cook it to simulate the humidity and conditions of a typical of New York on average. So it's really, I think New York sea level, but then there's also like the humidity conditions, the average temperature. And so you're in Florida, it's much more humid. You have to control for these things to really try and simulate how New York pizza comes out.
I have had pizza across the whole country. Every state, I guarantee at some point, some club has just thrown pizza after the show, right? That's
Chicago
the
pizza is the best, but I am not talking about deep dish.
It's a different kind of pizza than New York pizza too.
Not deep dish. I am
not-
talking about real Chicago pizza, which is it's a thin-ish crust. The crust is probably twice as thick as your average New York, and it's firm. I don't really know how else to describe it. It is, and it's cut into squares. And this is how we had all of our pizza growing up. The crust doesn't rise, so you don't get, like on a New York pizza, the back of the pizza is big, and then it's flat, and then it rises a little bit. Chicago pizza doesn't do that. It's baked and it like stays as it is. Then it's like the sauce, the cheese is really thick. They're cut into squares, and it's a thick square piece. That's how we have Chicago pizza. Chicago pizza's the best.
Have you guys tried Andy's Pizza that's in the area yet? So they won 2021's World's Best Pizza award.
Let's
I've
do
been
it.
meaning
Really?
I've been meaning to try it, and apparently they won it with a cheese pizza.
Now we got to get Dave Portnoy out here. I mean, he's doing Pizza Fest.
Yeah.
Dave just did a review of my buddy's pizza up in Connecticut. Foucault pizza, it's great.
Foucault?
He gave it a good review.
Foucault, yeah. I think he gave it like an 8.5 or
Did
something.
you see that video where the guy came out screaming at him?
Yeah.
Awesome.
What happened? What?
He's like, he does the pizza reviews, and he came out, and the store owner came out and started screaming at him or something, like insulting him. And then he started talking with people who were outside, and they were like, I love Dave Portnoy, he's great. And he's like, what's going on, dude? I'm just eating pizza.
No, he tried to go to the cops, the business owner, because he was standing on the sidewalk, and the cops were cool with him. You know,
Yeah.
they were friends with him and stuff. So
Why did the store owner hate him?
Well, just because
he's a liberal, but also I guess the business owner's claim is that Dave Portnoy is bad for small business, which I don't understand.
No, because they're woke.
Here's the thing too: is even if you give a place a bad pizza review, okay, Barstool people on the internet won't go there, but it's not going to hurt your current existing business.
No,
you know
no.
what I mean? Dave can only bring
But
business.
it's because he knows he's got bad pizza.
Yeah,
Bro, if I had a pizza place and Dave showed up, I'd be like, please, bro, tell the people about my pizza.
Yeah.
And he's going to be like, it's pretty good, man. Even if he said, it's not the best pizza, but it's like a 7 or an 8, I'd be like, yes.
if you live in the area too, you would be like,
Yep.
okay, the Dave Portnoy.
And also,
yeah.
like Portnoy was doing all that stuff during COVID to help all the small
Yeah,
businesses.
that
and stuff.
too.
That dude was
That too.
just had his.
Didn't he say it had too much Parmesan? Is that what it was?
yeah.
Yeah, he's like, too much parm, man. I don't like it.
2 days ago,
But honestly, it was an average New England interaction.
I like Dave Portnoy.
Realistically.
He had Mincy's back when they fired him for BS reasons.
He had-
that's good.
Yeah,
that's
that
good
Washington Post journalist trying to do a hit piece on him. And so he called her directly and recorded and uploaded it on Twitter. This is 2 days ago. Highly recommend. It's like a masterclass in how you deal with this stuff. Go on the offensive.
Stuff. And she admitted that she was just trying to goad people, and then published the story anyway. And he's like, how it's amazing that the state of journalism, you can get someone on the phone admitting that they're making up the story and pushing it, and then still run the story anyway.
I think now is a good time to quote Michael Malice: "The job is not done until the average corporate journalist is looked at in the same way that a tobacco lobbyist is."
He is correct. He is correct. Let's read some more. All right. Dark Hellhound says, Dark Hellhound? It says Dark Hellhound. New Jersey voted Menendez back in after he was indicted. Well, you wrote indicated, but indicted in 2013 for bribery, fraud, and false statements. Most people in New Jersey will vote for the person with the D next to the name. Yep. And when you go and talk to them, I'd love to believe there's a conspiracy, but bro, I have lived near these people. I have sat down and played poker with these people. I have gone to bars and spoken to them at bars, and they have no idea what they are talking about. And you'll say something like, you'll be like, do you have any concerns about
They're stubborn
Menendez?
about it too.
Well, no, like you'll go to someone and be like, like you're wearing an I voted thing. It's like, you vote, what did you vote? Like, I voted for Menendez. And be like, do you have any concerns about the fraud and like the accusations of underage girls? And they'll go, the what? And I'm just like, oh, dude. Politics is busted, man.
It's never a good policy to say, oh, we want to remove voting rights from people, but man, people abuse the hell out of their right to vote.
Right.
They are irresponsible with it. They do no actual effort into looking to see if what they've heard on Comedy Central is actually true. It is just clown world up and
You know
down.
what's so sad about it too is New England, and I guess by extension, I'm not going to, but that area of the country is where the American Revolution originated from. And you can still see some of that attitude in the people in the sense that they're so stubborn and belligerent, and you can tell how, hey, these people's ancestors picked up guns. The problem is the energy's directed all in the wrong direction. Right? When you think about it, the New Englander energy of today could be directed toward, hey, I'm not with what's going on in the country. We're going to protect American tradition. But instead, it's like, yes, I'm going to stubbornly stand up like the guy in the Dave Portnoy video and fight you over the rights of, gay, black, transgender children to, get
such thing.
mastectomies at 14, but I'll fight you for that, bro. That kind of thing. That's the problem. The energy's in the wrong direction.
I agree.
All right. Tyrion says, be careful with an orgy of evidence. This is the passport in the wreck of 9/11. I think the 100s, 50s, and 20s is because a single bank only has so much cash on hand. Also, why hide it in clothing? I think it's a fair point, too. Someone said that Menendez was speaking out against the Iran deal, and then all of a sudden indictment drops. Maybe that's it. I do not trust these people, man.
Right.
I don't trust Menendez, but I gotta be honest. If you've got you can what was the Jack Sparrow quote? He's a dishonest man, but you can trust him because you can trust him to be dishonest.
Yeah.
And something like that. And that's how I view politicians across the board, except for maybe like a handful of libertarians,
Right.
maybe like one Democrat, and maybe like seven Republicans. But the SDNY, it's just like you can't even trust them to be dishonest properly. They are completely amoral crackpots. I would not put it past them to go after even a Democrat because a Democrat was falling in line. In fact, I would expect that. So yeah, Menendez, I view what, like the idea that he would play politics so that he can get favors. That's the kind of dishonesty I expect from a Menendez. Bribery and these kind of charges are up there. And then you look at the going after of Donald Trump, which is, I guess you can call one neutral evil. And then what SDNY is doing is like, I don't know, it's abject evil. Like, I know that Menendez is like these politicians are going to do things like insider trading. They're going to say, hey, if you fund this thing for me, I'll fund this thing for you. And like, they're going to have a buddy come to them and say, hey, look, man, my company needs this thing done. Don't worry, we'll get it through committee. Whether or not he would take gold bars in exchange for that is a leap. So maybe. But I'm going to say it, like SDNY going after Trump, all the bullshit coming out of New York is so just egregious. I don't trust it. And a good point on orgy of evidence.
I think they're definitely after Menendez for a reason. Whatever reason that is, it never comes.
Yep.
It's similar to the Russell Brand thing, I guess. I mean, who knows if he did it or not? But
I just don't
it's
trust
like,
any of it.
but according to their story, they knew Hollywood or in the entertainment industry must have known about this so many decades ago. But now suddenly, because he is causing problems for them, now allegedly, according to them, suddenly they care. Suddenly they bring this up.
I just don't believe it. I mean, we talked with FBI whistleblowers this morning on the culture war, and I'm like, hey, we have instances of identity theft, fraud, and swattings, and we get no law enforcement accountability or anything. And they're like, of course.
Not enough money.
Well, it's not that. I think that a good portion of it is they operate as weapons of the agenda, narrative, the cathedral, etc.
Yeah.
And I think everybody would agree. If you are an obstacle in any way and you're obstinate, you're out of the picture. And they'll come out and they'll find a reason. And if you're a regular person and you say, hey, I'm under attack, they'll say, we don't care. This thing has no impact on us.
I did get the vibe that the 400 going after him for 400K seems like that's not that much.
I mean, like,
but it is
it's
a bribe.
Felony, it's felony territory.
Yeah.
I'm torn. Like, I don't like the government prosecuting people, but I also don't like politicians, and I like politicians, getting prosecuted. So I'm torn.
Well, I think it could be true and he's guilty of all of it, but they only care because of a certain reason. You know what I mean? That's also a possibility. Because
that crossed my mind.
how many politicians are technically guilty of bribery? Probably all of them. Right?
This is a good one right here. Paracelsus Underx says the Chinese couldn't capitalize on gunpowder because the steel in the East is crap. It's Western steel that changed to gunpowder. Interesting.
That is an awesome fact.
Perhaps that is why. They could make the powder, but they could not contain it and direct the energy properly.
I mean, I know Japan is well known for the steel and the swords, the katanas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
I think it really. I think a lot of it has to do with China. So Japan had Japan's an island, so the fighting and competition there is fierce. With the Americas, with Africa and with Eastern Europe, you have such large land masses that when conflict arose, people could flee. So this is true of animals. The burrowing animals tend to be the most vicious, badgers, for instance, because they dig their way into a hole.
Stuck.
And they're stuck. And so if a predator comes, if they don't fight, they die. So what happens is, so let's say you have a bunch of badgers and half of them are really nice and half of them are really mean. The nice ones are all dead. With birds, they fly away, which is why birds aren't aggressive and don't attack you for the most part. But have you ever seen a bird attack somebody?
Those those geese, they can't fly,
Well,
man.
I mean,
Then they feel a
geese are
little more.
Geese
But
can
I mean,
fly.
I've seen someone walk near a tree with eggs and the bird jumps out and starts like flapping around their head and pecking at them and stuff. And I'm like, whoa, bird's pissed. I saw a squirrel attack somebody once too. That's crazy.
It looks like in 1856, Henry Bessemer developed a method to reduce the carbon content in iron, which led to modern steel production. That's
Reduction of
1856.
carbon.
So the 1,000 years before that, I don't know why it didn't take off. What advancements they had in
Well,
in
I don't
Europe.
think they
Bro,
used
look-
steel casings for a while.
Read about the history of guns.
Just barrels.
The crazy thing is how long it took to get the modern revolver. It's like somebody, so they got muskets, and then some guy's like, what if I have like a rotating cylinder with, we can preload all of the balls and the powder. And what the way it worked is same as a flintlock. And after it fired, you would hand crank it and then set it again and fire and then hand crank it. And then eventually they developed percussion cap, which is preloaded, but then you put percussion caps, little metal caps that have primer in them, and you stick them over the holes, and then the hammer hits it, sparking into the chamber and firing it. And then eventually, I think it was some French dude who was like, why don't we just put it all in one thing? Like put the primer and the casing and the bullet all in one. Then you can just put it in the gun and shoot it and take it out and put it one in and then it was like 100 years or something. It was crazy.
Who gets credit? It's the Portuguese gets credited with modern firearms, right? Inventing
Portuguese?
modern. Is that right?
No, I don't think so. I think the cartridge was a French dude.
Cartridge. It
Interesting.
sounds
Yeah.
like a French word. Yeah, French gunsmith Casimir Lefaucheux,
Invented the cartridge.
1836, the cartridge.
Yeah. Crazy. And then, see, that's pre-Civil War.
1830s.
Yeah, 1830s. And then in the Civil War, the Confederates were still using muzzle-loaded rifles.
Yeah.
The Union was as well. Battle of Gettysburg changed the game because the Union soldiers started using, I guess you'd call it breech-loaded shells. Breech-loaded cartridges, paper cartridges. So it had the bullet, it had the powder, and it was wrapped in paper. And you would basically break action, and then they would stick it in the back and then close it, and then they could fire with a percussion cap. And they were 10 times faster than the Confederates. Crazy stuff.
You know what's crazy is the Union had access to the 1860 Henry, which was a lever action rifle, right? I think one of the first or the first ever invented. And in theory, they probably could have mass adapted to it, which back then it'd be like giving.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, by giving every infantryman a machine gun.
1860?
1860 Henry is the first like major lever action in America. Yeah,
Was it invented in 1860?
I think that's why it's called the 1860 Henry.
But the
right?
Civil, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then there's 1866 after that.
Wow.
But I guess the Union wouldn't adapt it I think some sharpshooters had it actually, but the Union wouldn't adapt it on a mass level because they were scared people were going to waste bullets.
Wow.
Which you think how differently the war could have gone. And I'm pretty sure that actually carried over the same logic kind of screwed us up in Vietnam too, the beginning, because
there was 1,731 Henry rifles used by the government in the Civil War, and it was a point of pride to have one.
Yeah.
Wow.
So in Vietnam, they were using like M1s or something?
Right, because they had the M1A, M14. And the Soviets, early in the war, the Viet Cong actually, I think, outclassed us because they had AKs already. But the thinking in the military brass even then was, the soldiers are all going to waste ammo if we, give them
full auto.
But, yeah.
All right, everybody. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, become a member at timcast.com to support the work we're doing, all of our cultural endeavors. We really do appreciate it. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally at Timcast. Vince, do you want to shout anything out?
Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, just Vince Dow. That's my name, DAO. And, you can look that name up on other socials as well, but YouTube. So, yeah, go subscribe to the channel.
Right on.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I am Phil That Remains official on the old Instagram. The band is All That Remains. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, Amazon Music, YouTube, the internet.
Thank you, Rockstar.
Cheers.
I'm Ian Crossland. You can follow me at Ian Crossland on Twix or any other social network. Happy to oblige. Vince Dow TV on Twix. That's Twitter.
Vincedow TV.
Get over here, Elon, so I stop making fun of you. Twix. Love you guys. See you later.
I didn't know what Twix. Brett's been doing that all week. I had no idea what Twix.
I got it
is.
from Brett.
Okay.
I got it from Brett, yeah.
Huge shout out to Carter Banks for pressing buttons all week. You're a rock star, man. You guys can follow me at Kellen PDL and get your Miami tickets. You have 1 week left. Do it.
All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. We'll be back we'll be back on Monday, and we'll see y'all then.